Hello Ghana, hello the world from across all digital platforms. You're tuning to the AM show on Joy News channel. My name is Sweetie Abochi and I do this with Benjamin Akakpo. Now this lovely Friday morning, we have a riveting lineup for you. You start with the news that matters to you, and then we bring you the news review. Two gentlemen will be joining me for that segment. Remy Edmondson, the National Secretary of the PPP, and Nanaya Sapong, the Political Assistant to Alan Chermanting. They'll be joining me for the news review. And then Haruna Mumbarak will bring you AM Sports, bringing you all the latest updates in the world of sports. And today being a Friday, you know what to expect. Benjamin Akakpo's blunt thoughts. Today he's titled it Political Callousness and an egregious disregard for life. Misleadership at its best. You know Benjamin Akakpo, and when he takes a stand there, he's going raw, unfiltered, uncensored. Now, in our big stories this morning, exactly how much more have you paid on some food items? And what are these food items? We'll tell you about the first 10 food items with the highest food inflation rate and why, as we engage the head of the Ghana Statistical Service, Professor Samuel Kobnenim, we are experiencing this. And on Citizens Microphone today, we find out how the cost of living is impacting the daily lives of some students and what has been their coping mechanisms and strategies. I'll be out there interacting with some students later on today. We'll bring you all that in the course of the show. So join us with your comments, with your thoughts. This is the AM show, and we are because you are. Let's start now with the AM news. Stick and stay. This is the AM News. In details now, the Ghana Grid Company Limited, GridCo, and the Electricity Company of Ghana, that's ECG, have announced a possible load management for 3 weeks. In a joint statement issued on Thursday, June 13, 2024, ECG and GridCo clarified that the load management is necessary due to, quote, maintenance works being undertaken by a gas supplier in Nigeria and is projected to last 3 weeks. The statement reads, power supply issues, gas challenge from Nigeria. The Ghana Grid Company Limited and Electricity Company of Ghana wish to inform the public that due to a reduction in gas supply from Nigeria since yesterday, Wednesday, 12 June 2024, some areas across the country have experienced interruption in power supply. The West Africa Gas Pipeline Company, that is WAPCO, in a statement has explained that the reduction in gas supply was due to maintenance works being undertaken by a gas supplier in Nigeria and is projected to last 3 weeks. The maintenance has caused a reduction in overall power generation capacity in Ghana, which could result in load management over the period of the work. GridCo and ECG, however, wish to assure the public that they are collaborating with other stakeholders in the power value chain to optimize available resources to ensure minimal impact of the reduction in gas supply on consumers. GridCo and ECG sincerely apologize for the inconvenience caused, and it's a joint statement by GridCo and the Electricity Company of Ghana. Away from that, special aide to the former President John Dramani Mahama, Joyce Bawa Mokhtari, has stated that the levels of corruption and thievery in the NPP government are unprecedented. Citing several alleged corruption cases to back her claim, she noted that members of the party are united in thievery and corruption and shy away from accountability. Joyce Bawa Mokhtari, however, assured the people of the country that should the NDC win the December polls in 2024, they will be made to account for every single penny stolen or ill-gotten.
Speaking ahead of the NDC party's Upper West Regional fundraising campaign, special aide to the former president, Joyce Bawa Mokhtari, did not mince words on why Ghana needs to have the NDC and John Dramani Mahama back in power.
Nana Akufo-Addo told us that we should be citizens and not spectators. So once we understand what is going on, the level of corruption, hardship, poverty. Indeed, this morning, one of our financial experts even announced that we should be careful, that very soon we are not told that even our treasury bills will receive a haircut. You've seen what has happened with Smith, where we've parceled off all of our choice hotels to sell to a government minister for agriculture. Things are bad in the economy, in infrastructure, on corruption we are down, on freedoms we are down. Ghanaians are actually said to be the most stressed people in the world. That is a very, very serious indictment. It tells you that our government is stressing us out. Change must happen, and I believe that for whatever it is worth, each and every Ghanaian must support this effort so that all of us can together build the Ghana we want.
He urged all well-meaning Ghanaians to support the cause of the NDC to rescue the country from the misrule and corrupt MPP government.
The idea is that we are here to ask all those who love the NDC, each and every Ghanaian, not necessarily just members of our party, but everybody here in the Upper West region who loves the National Democratic Congress, who wants us to succeed and who wants us to win. Tonight is here to make a donation. I met an amazing young man, I didn't even quite catch his name, who has actually picked up a ticket to pay 50,000 Ghana cedis as his contribution to our cause towards wresting power from the MPP in 2024. So I think that tonight, all of us are looking for, you know that in the Eastern region, they raise over 5 million Ghana cedis in one evening in support of the party. And that is a worthy cause. It is a necessary responsibility for all of us.
Joyce Mokhtari poo-poohed the mantra of the MPP, breaking the eight, stating that they are only united in theft, corruption, and shy away from accountability. She however assured Ghanaians that they will soon be made to account for every penny stolen or ill-gotten.
They are united in their theft, united in their stealing, united in their corruption because they don't want accountability. But let me make a very, very sound argument. The day of accountability is coming. And as soon as we win, John Mahama will ensure that all these allegations of graft and corruption are investigated and persons who are found culpable will be duly prosecuted. We must collect the money back, at least the $58 million. Can you imagine? There's only 30 million people in Ghana. Imagine what that amount of money looks like. The $12 million of Palugu, can you imagine what that looks like? Look at 11 point how many millions spent on PDS alone and all the others. This is not a situation that any citizen of Ghana should tolerate. And I believe that very soon they will be accounting for their corruption, for their stealing, and for their greed. Leaders are not elected to be greedy. They are elected to serve the people. That is why we elect them. So I call on every well-meaning Ghanaian to work very hard to remove these stealers from office.
Member of Parliament for the Tamale North constituency, Alasan Suini, opined that what Ghanaians are currently experiencing about the corruption cases of the MPP are only a tip of the iceberg, revealing that they will shock to the marrow when they are out of power.
I mean, the corruption that is spoken about in this government is much worse than we currently can imagine. And that's why they say that it is only when the frog dies that you can actually, notice its full length. So if you are worried about the corruption that you are currently hearing about, just imagine what you will hear when they are no longer even in power to cover the others that are yet to come to the fore. It is a reason why we think that this year's election is a national exercise, it's a communal exercise, and we must all be part of that rescue effort.
Reporting for Joy News, Rafiq Salam. Wah.
The Director of Traditional and Alternative Medicine at the Ministry of Health, Dr. Anastasia Urinchi, has called for the promotion of traditional and herbal medicines from faith-based to evidence-based practices. Speaking at the opening of the Executive Prostate and Herbal Center in Accra, she urged the government to invest in and regulate these practices to ensure efficacy and build public interest and trust.
The Executive Prostate and Herbal Center, a part of Ghana Herb Therapeutics, a leading herbal pharmaceutical producer in Ghana, offers products like Ghana Balm, Prostajoy, MC 500 Ghanaman, and Crypto 400. The facility in Medina includes consulting rooms, a modern laboratory, ultrasound departments, a dispensary, OPD, administrative offices, and an IT desk. Its vision is to provide accessible and affordable herbal medicine while adhering to WHO standards. At the opening ceremony, Dr. Anastasia Yerenchi, Director of Traditional and Alternative Medicine at the Ministry of Health, emphasized the need for evidence-based promotion of herbal treatments.
The orthodox, either sooner or later, will give you some unwanted side effects. This is something that we don't have to argue about. It's a known history. So for us, traditional medicine, I think we have lost a heritage, which over the years, all governments, successive governments, including our current government, are seeking to redress, are seeking to promote traditional and alternative medicine. The olden days, they didn't add science. They were believing based on faith-based, we were believing on histories, we were believing on testimonies. But now we live in an evidence-based era where people need to see evidence that, yes, you are telling me herbal medicines work. What and what do they do? And when I take, what are the expectations that I should expect? So the evidence is there. And now, like I told you, the government is throwing his weight so much on the development of herbal medicine.
CEO and manager of the Executive Prostate and Herbal Center, Dr. Nutifafa Techi, has also urged herbal medicine producers to add value and empirical evidence to their products to overcome doubts about traditional and herbal medicines.
Our doctors are pharmacists, doctorate ones, were trained with big pharma. They were trained with big pharma drugs. So that's what they know. All the evidence, the research that they've been doing are all with the big pharma drugs. Okay? Herbal medicines, most of them in our part of the world doesn't have empirical evidence to its safety, its efficacy, and its quality. We don't have it. So before we can erode that skepticism about herbal medicine, we need to add empirical evidence, which is expensive to do. But those of us who are doing it, Ghanaians need to accept us. The doctors, the pharmacists need to accept our medication, because Prostajoy, Say 500, Ghana Man, and all our drugs they have a lot of empirical data, scientific research data to back the claims.
Located on the UPSA road in Medina, the Executive Prostate and Herbal Center offers services for prostate diseases, general OPD cases, lab scan services, infertility treatment, and many more.
In other stories, the Environmental Justice Foundation is calling for active stakeholder participation to catalyze actions for ocean conservation. Speaking at the World Ocean Day activities in Cape Coast, Programs Manager of Environmental Justice Foundation, Theophilus Boachiyadom, emphasized the need for sustainable measures to protect the ocean resources with a particular focus on fighting plastic pollution and illegal mining. He urged all parties to join efforts in advocating for sustainable ocean practices to ensure the health and productivity of marine environments.
Boachiyadom says there are already deep concerns about the dwindling fish stock in the sea, and the phenomenon, coupled with plastic pollution and the effect of galamsey activities, is extremely worrying. Programs Manager of the Environmental Justice Foundation says an active stakeholder intervention is required to deal with the menace.
Now, fishermen go fishing, and instead of coming home with fish, they come home with litter, with plastics. And if nothing is done about this, it means we're going to be in trouble. If you look at our rivers, the Pra River, other river systems that are polluted, that connect to the sea, where you find the estuaries. The estuaries are the areas that you find mangroves that really harbor a lot of the younger fish, or the baby fish, if I should call it that, that they survive over there and then go back into the ocean for survival. And all these mangrove areas which are the connecting points between rivers and the ocean, are polluted heavily with mercury. if we are unfortunate to come with fish or to eat fish that has been disturbed or affected by mercury, then automatically it's going to affect our health system.
Central Regional Director of the Fisheries Commission, Kwame Damoa, expressed worry about the use of illegal means to catch fish.
In ensuring that the dwindling stocks are being replenished, the General Ministry as a whole has embarked on this close season and then also on the moratorium on new canoe entrance to reduce efforts and other activities such as the increase in the enforcement activities. And I must say, it is out of reach that for the Central Region we have the renowned London Beach Enforcement Committees. We also realize that our staff strength is not that much, coupled with the fact that the police cannot be everywhere. We formed the London Beach Enforcement Committee to be able to give us credible and reliable information to be able to deal with the perpetrators.
Chief Fisherman of Eja, Nana Kwabia Abebiu III, called for a collaboration between the chief fishermen and the various traditional leaders at the coastal belt of the country.
We are calling on the custodians of our land, that is the Omahins in the coastal areas, to summon all chief fishermen, whoever is involved in this IUU in that community, to be sanctioned or should be warned, so that all chief fishermen will come together and sing one song in order to combat the IUU or the chemical fishing, the large fishing, dynamite and all those things.
The World Oceans Day is marked to highlight the immediate protection measures for the marine resources.
Away from that, the University of Health and Allied Sciences in the Volta region has committed to international collaboration to contribute to enhancing human resources in Ghana's health sector. It has so far engaged about 55 international collaborations with universities across the world to build the capacity of faculty and improve the training of students. Speaking at the celebration of the University of Health and Allied Sciences International Day, the Vice-Chancellor, Professor Lydia Aziato, announced the latest collaboration with York University in Canada.
of Health and Allied Sciences International Day was instituted to celebrate cultural diversity in the campus community that harbors people of different races. Currently, UHAS has 25 international faculty members contributing to the university winning international awards and recognition within its 12 years of existence. Addressing the UHAS International Day, Vice-Chancellor of the university, Professor Lydia Aziato, emphasized the university's urge to leverage international collaborations.
This partnership helped us to train 9 faculty members in their PhD programs. And that is good because the university started with faculty who are early career with masters. So having 9 faculty members trained is very, very, very commendable. The partnership also helped us to strengthen our clinical placement issues, which we call the vocational training. And we are grateful to our partners from York University. We are also grateful to the University of Alberta in Canada, the Queen Elizabeth Scholarship Program, that is going to take about 4 of our faculty members to Canada, and we are grateful.
The Dean of International Faculty, Professor Eric Takan, who is a Cameroonian, lauded the hospitality of Ghanaians and the enabling and fair environment created by UHAS for non-Ghanaian nationals to strive in the campus community.
I see equity in the system in such a way that if a foreigner can rise to this rank, it gives us, those of us around here in Ghana, motivation to work extra hard. If I can do it, it means others too can do it. So Ghanaians are a hospitable people. Otherwise, I came here since 2015. If they were not hospitable, I would have left. So I count it a great joy to serve the university and Ghana at large in this position.
The International Day was climaxed with a cultural performance from faculty members who went from Nigeria, Cameroon, and Cuba. Fed Kwame Asari, Joy News.
And our Presec Legon began their championship title defense as 15 schools clashed in the first series of the contest for academic supremacy in the Goyle Regional Championship of the National Science and Maths Quiz. While the school holds the record for winning the regional championship title back-to-back, their contenders are poised to ward them off another entitlement. Adobe Asari has more in this report.
Presec Legon is on course to becoming the regional champions for the Goyle Greater Accra region NSMQ for the 5th consecutive time. They beat their close contenders, Tema Methodist Senior High School, with a 59-point gap. Having amassed a resounding 76 points in their contest, they are hopeful to win the regional championship title yet again.
This win is a very good win, and it's our first step towards the regional trophy and eventually the final trophy as well. And how we feel, well, I would say that, yeah, the work is not done. As we always told in Presec, we are told that we're not done until it's all finished. Tomorrow is the regional final, and we hope to win that as well.
I'm very confident that we'll win the trophy tomorrow, and it's because we've always trusted in God. Before we came here, we learned that we have to trust in God like we've learned nothing, and God will show his glory through us, and he has done that for us. And so we know that tomorrow during the finals we'll be able to win the trophy to glorify his name.
The glory of the Lord is with us, and he's the one that puts us on the high pedestal. So we are not afraid. We are confident that the Lord himself will lead us and will replicate what he did today in the finals.
The Chimota School and Ashaiman SHS, after securing slot, shared their excitement, each expressing optimism of winning the next contest.
Well, we prepared very hard for this. We prayed and we believed that we were going to put out our best, and our best should make us win. So that was our belief, and we know the evidence is seen everywhere right now.
Do you see yourselves becoming regional champions tomorrow?
With God and with our efforts, why not?
I just feel good. I don't know. Everything was like, we weren't going to win, but God on our side, we won, and we are happy about it. We are very glad, and we thank God for that.
So you beat your contenders with just 1 point. Doesn't that put fear in you?
Nah, because I believe in my boys. They can do their work. Very simple, and they did it marvelously for me. Yes.
So the prize is won. We love you, Ashasek. We love you. We love you.
Actually, we came here with a force through a distance, and we know that the work is done already.
But there was doomso whilst the students were engrossed in a heated competition. Despite this minor setback, Accra Academy won the final contest, also qualifying for the regional championship.
I'm very excited. Plus, we knew that we'll win them, so it wasn't a big news.
What's your expectation for tomorrow? Do you see yourself winning the regional championship?
Oh, yeah, by God's grace, God will see us through tomorrow, yeah. And we know perfectly that we will win tomorrow.
All 4 schools are set to contest for the regional championship title on Friday, 14th June 2024.
In our business updates this morning, Senior Finance Lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, Dr. Benjamin Amwam, is urging African economies to focus on improving the African Continental Free Trade Area to realize its full potential. Speaking to Joy Business, Dr. Benjamin Amwam said African economies should rather invest in the harmonization of trade in the region.
The continent itself has adopted AFTA, and we are looking at how best we can integrate from the continent level all the economies of Africa. So if AFTS can give us what we need, then why don't we rather put in the effort from the AFTA initiative and achieve it at a continental level if a single currency will not work? If you look at monetary unions, a few years ago, Britain got out of, the European Union. Gibraltar also got out. So countries that at a point in time feel that these economic unions do not help have all that it takes to move out. So if even before we go into it, we are having challenges and we have not been successful because of obvious reasons, countries are not committed to go by the criteria, why don't we think about what next to do, which is to focus on the big goal, which is the African Continental Free Trade Agreement and area, and let's benefit from the harmonization of trade and services through that particular channel. From that score, I will say that it is better if we put the ECO call aside and then work towards the economic integration of the whole of Africa. It may look big, but then we stand more to benefit. Because like I said, none of the 7 regional economic blocs have been successful at having its own currency. So it is not strange that we are struggling as West Africa to have the ECO.
And that's it for business updates and a wrap for the AM News. Coming up next is the news review segment. You don't want to go away. This is a new Super Review segment on the AM show, proudly brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. And they're offering free prostate screening and free fertility screening at various locations here in Accra. They're on the Spintex Road, opposite the Shell signboard. In Kumasi, they're in Kronuma here behind the Angel Educational Complex. In Takrade, Anaji Estate, in Tema Community 22, in Techiman, Hanswa, and Esiama in Zima. You can call them on 0244 867-068 or 0274-234-321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic diseases. And that's how we're starting the news review segments this morning. My guest in the studio is Remy Edmondson, the National Secretary of the PPP. Remy, it's good to have you in the studio. Good morning.
Yes, Sweetie, good morning. I hope you had a great week.
Yeah. My week has been cool.
Wonderful.
How about you?
It's been good.
Great.
Yes.
Okay. So we're supposed to have 2 guests, but in the course of the program, if he joins us, fine. But we have to proceed. So like we do on the show, you have about a minute or 2 to get into any topical issue that you have some reactions to.
Yes. Yesterday, I heard about the suspension, or is it closure, temporary closure, of the renal units for Konfanochi Teaching Hospital. Sorry, the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital, and then at Kolebu. And I think it's quite a surprise, quite a bit of worry that not long ago the NHIS assured us that certain vulnerable groups were going to be catered for a period of at least 6 months.
18 and below and 60 and
from
above.
June to December this year to at least help support them. So, and I can't remember reading last week on your portal that you sent out your reporters to go and fact check, and somewhere in Kumasi, one patient indicated that when they go, they tell them not receive any such directive. And then to find out that this is what is happening, this closure unannounced for 2 institutions for depart to happen at the same time, citing maintenance work without any timelines as to when they are going to be reopened for patients to access. It's quite worrying. The Health Facility Regulatory Agency made us know last year in October that they have on record just 14 registered dialysis centers here in Ghana. 7 government, 7 private. And as you well know, most the private ones will turn out to be a bit pricier, so most people would troop to the public ones. And we are having a situation, let me just read from them, that 8 of the facilities are in the Greater Accra region, 3 are in Ashanti, Northern has 1, Eastern 1, and Western region has 1. So majority of the regions don't have any outlets. It means patients will have to travel from Volta and other OT and other regions to the nearest center. Yes, and we are having a situation that all those closer to Accra will come, and then it's been closed down. It's a situation that's quite worrying, and we're going to urge the health ministry to really see to this and address it as quickly as possible. Because I mean, most patients don't even have the money, and if you know patients, I've had friends who have had this pain. It really drains them. It drains them. It drains relatives, because virtually all the money has to go into getting them some medication. And now they're going to have to add to their worry, not knowing when at all these two important facilities will open. So we'll call on the health ministry to really get to the root of this and have them open as quickly as possible.
Hopefully they heed this call and do the needful. But let's get into our newspapers, starting with the Daily Graphic newspaper. On the front page, speak truth to Vice President. That is according to Asante Hene. President should pay tax on salary, committee recommends. This is the Daily Graphic newspaper. Special supplement on Idul Adha, that is inside. Vote buying aberration of democracy, NCCE chairperson. Anya Soutuom, NPP's fortress, poor roads, poor drainage systems. But let's get into the actual paper. And I would like to start with a story about the president, should pay tax on salaries, according to the committee. You're saying, you agree, huh? But let's get into the story to bring our audience to speed. So the president should pay tax on his salary and emolument as an example to the rest of the citizenry. A draft report by the Constitution Review Consultative Committee, and that's what they are recommending. The report said such a move will reflect the principle of equity before the law and accord with the principles of law. Quote, this committee therefore recommends that Article 68, Clause 5 be deleted to mandate the president of the country to pay tax, unquote, the report said. And the report was put together by a 12-member committee chaired by Clara Kasati, a lecturer from the University of Ghana School of Law. The committee, which was inaugurated by the Minister of Parliamentary Affairs, Osei Mensah Bonsu, on April 28, 2023, was tasked to review the 2011 reports on the Constitution Review Committee. Now, per the report, which was presented at a stakeholders consultation meeting yesterday for the possible review of the 1992 Constitution, the amendment of this provision will trigger the necessary consequential amendment of the income tax law of the country. I know you have a lot to say, but let me introduce our guest. You're welcome to the studio, Mr. Sapong. You are late, but I'm sure it's for a reasonable...
All the roads blocked.
The roads are blocked?
Even at 6 a.m., that's what happens.
All right, so Nanaya Sapong is assistant to Alan Shermanteng of the Movement for Revolutionary Change, or the
Alliance for
Revolutionary
But
Change.
ours is the Movement for Change.
Movements for Change. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you, sweetie.
We just read a story about how a committee is recommending that the president should pay tax. But before we get into that, you have about a minute to get into any issue of national interest that you have some response to, and then we get into the papers.
Thank you, and then my apologies to your viewers. I mean, what I would want us to look at actually has to do with our infrastructure. You know, when it comes to how our civil engineering works are done, I think that there is a need for us to sit down and have a national dialogue on it and see, to have a review on the civil engineering layout, because we can still have a country whereby once it drizzles, there is floodings. And we always say that the drains are choked, but then how are the drains choked? How are they laid? Are we able to look at it? Even with new constructions, new roads that are made, you would notice that they still have that same problem. I think together as a nation, we have to come together.
Did you hear the Deputy Minister for Works and Housing saying that the work that we need to fix flooding issues in Accra is just 2% that has been done so far? Just 2%.
And that is what I'm talking about. We need to, even with the 2%, how is it done? You understand? I mean, we still have very much open drains. We still have drains that are on the surface. And we should be looking at it, because if you would look at the rain patterns that we're getting into, these are not the heavy times, all right? I mean, these are just the surface of it. it just started. And so we should look at it. And I'll use this opportunity to invite you to the launching of the Great Transformational Plan. And it has a component, one of the clusters that has to do with infrastructure. And we are looking at having a national dialogue on the re-engineering of the entire civil works, and that would affect our roads and how our buildings are all made. And,
all right.
And we should look at it.
Okay. So now, do you think the president should pay tax? I'll start with Remy because he was saying leadership by example. What are your thoughts on this story?
Yes, exactly. I mean, you know, it's just fair that citizens are burdened so much, but it's important for us as leaders, those of us who aspire to lead, those of us who to set an example for the ordinary Ghanaian. Yes, and we are having a situation where personally I feel that there are a lot of perks and freebies that go with the situation that need to be scrapped. I mean, the free electricity, was it, I've forgotten the government official, he was indicating that, that's Muhammad, sorry, was indicating that, yeah, when he comes to office, he's going to, the free DSC subscriptions and others that government officials receive, in all fairness, yes, need to be scrapped. Because when they get so much freebies, you see, the person gets isolated from you and I. So when you complain, if a minister or someone is in a V8, you know how if you sit in a luxury car, it's so comfortable. I was telling a friend, you can go through portals from Accra to Kumasi, you're not going to feel it. So when the ordinary Ghanaian complains, it might be noise to you and irritation.
So you think paying tax will bring him down to a level?
It's like I said, it's just fair. Equity. We are all ordinary Ghanaians. Let him also pay his taxes. And then when we can all be on equal foot and have the equal conversation. But I'm quite excited about this proposal also because it fits into a lot of what the PPP has been saying consistently for the past 2 years, especially about the part about the president having to appoint majority of the ministers from parliament. We have always found this problematic because the same ministers will go to parliament, cabinet, take decisions with the president, and then come back to parliament, and that oversight responsibility is weakened. And so they are not able to effectively check the executives. So I'm very happy that this proposal has been taken into consideration, as well as yes, and also ensuring that the MMDCs will be elected. That's also another important thing, amendment we've been championing also, that let's the MMDC be accountable to the people, let the people elect them, and then it was going to stop all the government interference, and then they being used as tools for the ruling government.
Okay.
Yes, I agree with some of the recommendations that are made. I mean, if you would look at what is happening in our nation, I think that there's been a huge call for the reduction in the number of ministers that we have. We as a movement, we as an alliance have actually looked at it, and in the few days when we have launched our Great Transformational Plan, you will notice that we categorically stated that the number of ministers, and I think that my boss has already mentioned that he is going to look at working with about 40 ministers. And if you look into our document, we have stated all the ministers.
Is that doable? Is that feasible?
It's feasible because we have stated the sector ministers we'll be working with, in addition to the regional ministers, and then the number of state ministers we would work with. I mean, there are some ministries that have 3, 4, 2, 3 deputies, and in our view, it's just not necessary.
Okay.
And as to the president paying tax, I think that it's a good call. I mean, if you taxing your citizens, the people you are leading, you should also pay, and then you would understand what they go through as civil servants, as private sector, when they are out there paying taxes.
All right.
It would actually inform certain decisions when you are making them. When you take your pay slip and then you know how much is going into tax. And I think that we have to actually, I think they have recommended that we need to actually re-engineer the constitutional architecture.
Right.
And that is one thing we are going to look at as a movement for change. We looking at actually having a constitutional review, just as they are doing. And
All right.
this should not just be a word of mouth.
Okay.
You understand?
Exactly.
Mostly, you would hear this when we are getting into elections. When we are going into elections, a whole lot of recommendations will come. We need to vote, subject our MMDCs to the people. They need to vote for them. They should be elected by the people. A whole lot. President's salary should be cut off by half. I mean, too much talking. I mean, let's get into action. They are beautiful recommendations.
Okay. All right. Let's get into more stories in the Daily Graphic. Keta youth angry over death of landlord in cells. This is a rather sad story. Wow. Some man, Mr. Pesenu, was arrested and died in police custody. The youth are saying that he was beaten to death. They're saying that he fell ill and he was rushed to the hospital, and that's where he died. But let's get into the story to bring you up to speed, and then we take our reactions. The youth in Keta have called on the Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Ekufu-Dampare, to interdict the officers involved in the death of Jerry Kwesenu, an indigene who died soon after he was arrested in his house and sent to the police station. They said everything pointed to the fact that Mr. Kwesenu died as a result of the brutality meted out to him during his arrest and when he was sent to the police station. Addressing journalists last Monday at Keta, the chairman of the youth desk, Bernard W.K. Doe, said the interdiction would pave the way for a thorough investigation into the circumstances that led to Mr. Kwesenu's death. He further described the conduct of the officers as unprofessional, unethical, barbaric, inhumane, saying that the treatment of Mr. Kwesenu led to his untimely death. And so the youth of Keta appealing to the IGP for justice. Let's hold on this. Let me add this story about locked up consignments at our port.
Right.
I'll clear medical consignment within 2 weeks. That is according to Dr. Okoboy. And that story is on page 35 of the Daily Graphic. The Minister of Health, Dr. Bernard Okoboy, has pledged to ensure the clearance of medical commodities from the Global Fund at the Tema port within 2 weeks. Quote, in 2 weeks, I will not be encouraged if there are 1 or 2 more containers left at the port. If by 2 weeks we still have containers at the port, you will not see me here. I will be sitting right at the port with them until everything comes out. We are committed to getting the containers in. And for me, irrespective of the bureaucracies involved and all that, I've given myself 2 weeks, he added, and attributed the delay in clearance of the commodities to lack of coordination between his ministry and the Ministry of Finance and the processes the government had to go through to clear the commodities. This particular story comes to me as a surprise. Yesterday, I was speaking with the ranking member on Parliament's Health Committee, Kwabena Mintah Kando, and he was saying that not only do these Global Fund, not only do they give us free medical supplies,
some money.
They also pay 1% of the total amount to aid in clearing these goods from the port.
Yes.
And after what, I don't know whether they said the first year or second year, our government went to these people, went to Global Fund and said that we've increased our charges, and so the 1% is no longer enough. And then so much bureaucracies and politics, and that's what's resulted in the delay. And so now, after giving them a 24-hour ultimatum, the minority said, 24-hour ultimatum, fix it. And now the minister is saying that he will fix it in 2 weeks. There was a lot of, ruckus, I think, beginning of this year, and about 45 of those containers were cleared. And now here we are again saying that in 2 weeks' time, if it's not cleared, he will sit at the port and ensure that everything is cleared. I don't know about you, gentlemen, but let me hear your thoughts on this. Remy.
So this issue started sometime last year, yes. And I'm also as perplexed as you are because I find it quite unfortunate and quite insensitive from this government to, a chunk of these drugs are also for HIV patients. And these are also people who are quite vulnerable. I mean, we have conversations with friends, medical practitioners who share information about some of the challenges that some of these patients go through. So there were lots of calls last year when this issue broke out from a lot of these interest groups for the government to, it was just recently I got to know about this 1% money that the Global Fund sends in addition. So it's unfortunate that the government did not prioritize and then waited for, now they're saying that this 7.4 million they've released is for demurrage charges. Yeah. So I wonder why would third party, mind you, third party, yes, and it feeds into certain allegations that this whole thing seems to have been deliberately orchestrated because if you knew that, I'm not sure that as of last year, these charges amounted to so much. So the question is, why did the government not take the steps to pay whatever money is needed to be paid to clear these goods?
And what did they do with the 1%? Well, anyway, finish.
Yes, and my worry is that about, I think about 25% of these drugs are close to expiring sometime.
Yeah.
Yes, very soon. So if we're not careful, by the time they clear them, and as to whether they even the money has really been, because we're going to come to that. We were told June is going to be fixed permanently, and now we are hearing that there's going to be an extra 3 weeks for plant maintenance. So I'm hoping that this will be true and that the drugs will be cleared so that the patients who need these drugs will be served as quickly as possible.
We'll be here in 2 weeks' time, right? Posterity will always tell. But Mr. Sapo?
Sweetie, this is a clear lack of patriotism and sense of agency on the part of the officers who are the ports and who are in charge to have worked it out to get these drugs cleared. So an organization sits and realizes that we need some medication. And to me, this actually should be a matter of national security because we have patients who are in the hospitals that are not getting these medications. And if they do not get these medications, they will die.
Yeah.
Now, how much would it cost us to bring a life back? That is, if it is possible. And how much would it cost us to get these medications off the ports and to our hospitals? There's a clear lack of the sense of urgency and patriotism. Sweetie, these are government agencies. Do they not have a line of coordination? Now, you are able to give tax incentives and so forth to private entities, and they put monies into their pockets.
Right.
And you are not able to give the Ministry of Health and its agencies that level of benefit to clear these medications that are for our own citizens. If these containers were actually for a private hospital whatsoever, maybe we could look at it from another angle. But these medications are for the state, they are for government, they are for our citizens, people who need them. And I'm told that more than 50% of these medications that are locked up in our ports are actually for essential medication, HIV, and tuberculosis.
Yeah.
And we sit aloof, unconcerned. I say we sit aloof because they have been at the port for so many days that I'm told that some of the containers are near expiration. And so how much is it going to cost us if we are going to go into the world market to go buy these same medications for our patients? There's a clear lack of sense of urgency and patriotism.
Okay.
If they actually have the people at heart and they think that every life in Ghana is important, they wouldn't sit down to do this paperwork. These are professionals. They should know that at some level of urgency and for lack of a better expression, in some level of emergencies, okay, you need to actually act first before you come back behind your desk to, coordinate and to put papers together. Okay. But if they would want to do these things first, I wonder. It's the same government. I mean, we are taking the taxes at the ports. Who are you going to give to?
I hear the ministry said they've received the money. So let's see how it goes in 2 weeks.
I mean, it's still, they are receiving the money to the ports. The ports are going to receive it to January, right? And January will send it back to Ministry of Finance.
It beats I don't understand. On this ongoing ambulance case, that story is on page 2. It's inaccurate to claim ambulances are unfit for purpose. That is according to businessman Richard Jakpa. The businessman accused with the minority leader of causing financial loss to the state has told the Accra High Court that there is no basis for the ambulances to be declared as unfit for purpose. Explaining under cross-examination by counsel for Dr. Kasiela Tuforson, Dr. Abdul Bamba, the businessman, Richard Jakpa, said the ambulances were not meant to be used immediately. He said, after the ambulances had been delivered, his principal, Big C, was supposed to provide technical support to train paramedics in the country on how to use the equipment in the ambulance before officially handing the vans over to the government for commissioning and usage. Quote, so the claim by prosecution and the judge that all parties have agreed that the ambulances were not fit for purpose is factually inaccurate. I have never admitted in court that the ambulances were not fit for purpose because they were not meant to be used in the first place, he said. But this case is, we are seeing a lot of he said, she said, I did this, I didn't do that. I wish I could skip forward to the end of it to see whether someone will actually be prosecuted. And the issue about this leaked audio recording, secret recording, not having any effects on the case, doesn't change anything, doesn't recuse the accused of the crime being committed. What are your thoughts, though? And now we are saying that really there was no reason to be making any issue because the ambulances were not meant to be used immediately. They were supposed to go through some technical changes, train paramedics and all that. So what, we were not patient enough? Remy?
Yes, as I said earlier the last time, I would still urge the Attorney General and his team to prioritize retrieving the 2.3 million euros in contention here. No one is saying that. It seems the focus, much of the focus has been getting these two accused people jailed. And I quite remember it came out clearly that there was an offer. If you remember, the Big C company, made an offer to pay about 2 million euros, and I think take back the vans as well in contention. And then if the AG would discontinue the prosecution of these two people.
Right.
It's good that, I'm sure, yes, we all want that there should be a deterrent, that these kind of losses to the estates shouldn't occur again. But again, for me, it doesn't make sense to me that if we go ahead and prosecute these to jail them, if that becomes the outcome, and then we don't get the money.
Yeah.
What purpose does it serve? So it's one angle that I want to see the AG pursuing very strongly. But again, day in and day out, new stories come out. What I have here on my front page says Japa says that he actually met Damien a couple of times at night around 10:30 p.m. That's also a new revelation, and more allegations. And these were actually said in court. More allegations about being coached. About looks like per his allegation, the goal is to get Atufosin jailed, and then his seat is actually the price at stake here. So we all want to see a closure of this, but it's quite worrying that more and more of these issues seem to cast a slur once again on the AG position,
right?
Which is quite worrying. And since he didn't take the judge's advice to recuse himself from this, we're going to see a lot more of this coming then.
And now they're halting government's business because minority says they are going to court, they're boycotting parliament in solidarity with their leader. But Mr. Sapong.
Chidi, this, in my view, this is a cock and bull story.
Oh, okay. How so?
You see, we all know and we all understand what it takes to have a contractual agreement. There are specifications, all right? Now, when you have been given a contract to supply, on delivery, they would have to inspect whatever product or item you have supplied. They inspected based on the specifications they had given in the contract.
Right.
There are timelines to the contract. We all know. So for you to come out and tell us that when you had delivered the items, you were not expecting us to have used it at the time, but on a later date, and then some training, blah, 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 all should have been part of the contractual agreement.
Okay.
And if it is, then I think that he has a responsibility to make us see what went into the contract, what specifications were there, what the timelines were, and indeed if the ambulances, when delivered, had met these standards. On the other hand, I think that Ghanaians are fed up with the way and manner in which the NDC and the NPP try to deal with issues of corruption. They try to play with our minds. At this crucial hour, then you would have the minority also come in to tell us that they're going to halt Parliament because their leader would be in court. At a point, you would notice that the NPP, that's the majority, would also bring us another. I'm surprised they've not held a press conference yet. They would also come and tell us another story, and they will say that, okay, they are going to bulldoze their way through. We are in this country. We are in the majority. The ordinary citizens are in the majority. We are tired of the way they handle the issues of corruption. We are tired. I still cannot think how we would say that a supplier comes to us, tells us that, listen, okay, I have not met your specifications. Bring me back my products, my items. Let me give you back your money. That is one aspect of it. If we've taken it and we think that there is still that aspect of criminality that we ought to prosecute.
So you believe that this is actually some vendetta against the minority leader?
This is a clear sign of both parties not willing to serve Ghana properly.
Right.
They are not willing to put the nation first, but their own selfish, partisan interest.
Right. Let's get into one last story and then I'll come to you. Speak truth to Vice President, according to Asante Otumfuo said to the second, has asked the handlers of the presidential candidate of the New Patriotic Party, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, to be truthful to him and not be moved by their parochial interest. He said the team should be frank with him if things are not going well, so he can re-strategize rather than allowing him to go astray. Otumfuo said the objective should be collective interests of the team and that of the party, which should be able to guide him on his campaign tour. Asante gave the advice when the vice president paid a courtesy call on him at the palace last Wednesday as part of his campaign tour of the region. Do you think that it's the people around the vice president, or the president in this case, let me add all of them together because they're the ruling party, that are not being truthful to the president and the vice president? Remy was just saying that if you sit in a V8 and you're driving on a deplorable road, you can't really feel the impact compared
you don't hear
to
the
people
noise.
who live in those communities or who use cars like mine, that you feel every impact, you know. So is it that they are shielded in a way, and so the onus falls on the people around them to tell them that, listen, Ghanaians are not doing so well. Listen, one tomato costs 5 cedis. Is it the case that they are not telling our leaders, our duty bearers, the truth, because they are shielded from the reality that we have to face?
Sweetie, I would rather, my take is that the Vice President, His Excellency Dr. Bawumia, is the one who is not even being truthful to Ghanaians. You see, we've had a litany of pledges and promises from him ever since he secured the nomination for the NPP flag bearership. And more worrying is the fact that I expected him to have owned up to the failures of this government, of which he is a very integral part of. But for me, that would have been the ultimate. But rather than that, he's rather moved away, saying that I'm not a part, though I am the current sitting vice president, all that has gone on, I'm not a part of it. And now give me power before I can fix. It's just unfortunate. If he cannot own up to the failures, I thought it would have just been nice to admit to Ghanaians that, look, we know we have not performed up to par. Yeah. But then, yes, I'm seeking power so that when I can come, I can work with you to fix A, B, C, D. That admission, I think, would have gone down very well with most well-meaning Ghanaians. But the fact that you're refusing to admit your involvement in this, I mean, you were touted as the economic guru, the economic messiah, and these were, I mean, Dr. Bawumia endeared himself to Ghanaians because of his series of lectures prior to 2016 against the then Mahama government. This was what made him famous in Ghana. This was what catapulted him to fame. Now, all of a sudden, we've seen you disappearing from the financial scene, refusing to accept any blame or even any involvement in it. And now, always speaking on any other issue except the financial situation we are in, which is what the bread and butter issues affecting you were talking about the tomatoes issue. Yes, these are the bread and butter issues that the ordinary Ghanaian is concerned about. But he's gone mute on it and refusing to speak. That, for me, excuse me, with all due respect, is a bit of dishonesty. You understand? So if you are not going to speak on the issue and admit your involvement, that for me is itself a biggest. It means that whatever truth you are told, you're not going to even listen to it. So I'm very sure he's very much aware of what is going on, but has chosen not to speak on them. Look for easy, low-hanging issues that he can speak about. Busy going about commissioning. I saw in my headline here, in one of the articles here, it talks about these laptops.
In fact, let's get into your paper now.
Yes, I mean, sharing laptops here and there.
Mr. Sapon, did you want to react to the call from Otumfuo that the people around him should tell him the truth?
Of course, I think that the president and the vice need to be told the truth. You know, if you look at what is happening to our economy now, and as my brother said, when Alhaji was being selected to pair with Nanado those times, the reason why the NPP then as a party had accepted him was because Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, His Excellency, had presented him as the person who was going to fix everything that had gone wrong with our economy. And today, I think, last week I was here on Friday, so on Saturday I went to the market. I bought tomatoes for 150 Ghana cedis. I got 45 pieces of the fruits.
You counted it?
Yes, you counted. Yes. At this stage, you counted it.
You're counting how many pieces of tomatoes you get for 100 and what?
50 Ghana cedis. Yeah. I got 45.
Okay.
Now, when I did the calculation, it means that I bought one for 3 cedis, 33 pesos.
You're lucky.
So I'm just trying to, maybe you bought yours somewhere. I bought mine from inside the market.
Okay.
So at that level, if I'm getting one for 3 cedis, 33 pesos, then it means that things are really gone bad.
Right.
Today, the dollar rate, they don't want us to say it, but it's about the 15 cedis or so. When you have gone to your own bank and you would ask them what the rate is, they will tell you that, come sit down and let's talk about it. Do we have to actually negotiate a rate? No, but that is how bad the economy has grounded.
It brings to mind a question. Before, Remy, you get into your paper, I don't know if we have time. Do you think that we are not speaking up enough? I remember, do you remember this? Mima Odumso, yeah, Mahama.
Oh, there is so much.
Do you remember the number?
Sweetie, I'm not cutting you short. There is so much fear in our system now.
Fear?
Yes.
I think Ghanaians talked up a storm when we were, experiencing hardship under former President Mahama's regime, compared to how much we're speaking up now.
That is when you have a regime that would allow you to speak and would not they would not, I don't know, when leadership is not vindictive and would not chase after you and your businesses when you speak out, that is why you would have people speaking out and speaking to issues.
Right.
Do you hear the businessmen talk? Speak up and see. GRA will come after you.
Yeah. And this is real. These are things they will tell you privately.
They will tell you.
Privately, but
we've come here because you were on so and so platforms speaking. And so everybody is protecting himself.
And you know this for a fact.
And, sweetie, you know. That is you and I, we know. And we are in the silent majority. That is what they do not know.
Right.
We put you in there. We put you in power. And we are telling them we are taking them out of power come December. Because we cannot live in fear and in silence under a government, a political party that's in government that has always been touted for being a friend to the freedom of speech and all of that.
Anyway, let's finish. Let's get into our papers now, starting with Remy.
Okay, so I have here from the Daily Guide, Constitutional Review Committee proposes 277 MPs. We've dealt with that. The 2.37 million euro ambulance case. I met Dami in Kulendi's house, Japa. Kaswa soldier killer charged with murder. And then the stories are, we've dealt with those, so I'll skip them. But I think that, let me just get to this, story about Mia presents laptops to students. Yes, right. That's just something.
Okay. Laptops?
Yes.
They get powered.
It's supposed to be tablets, yes. But this is again another unnecessary wastage. You did a story, was it last week, about the Wi-Fi situation, and then we had this same situation with in the then Mahama government with the RLG laptops. What happened to them? I mean, if students are going to, we believe that there are key issues, critical issues in our education sector, that such monies need to be used to address and fix. We still have classrooms in rural areas where students don't have sufficient number of chairs. Those who are lucky may even have some that they may have to collaborate. Right. But quite still a number have to still sit on floors. This is in 2024. So I would have expected that these money would have been channeled into. I see this. These things are done for procurement to reward food soldiers. Because if you look at the average cost, when the cost that was put out, the average cost of these tablets, it was quite exorbitant. I'm sure they had gone through proper tender and allowed a free market, private business sectors to apply for it, we could have gotten these at a value for money. Again, how sure are we that these students? One of the cases made for this was that they're going to come loaded with software and educational material. But look, learning is dynamic. If these tablets will be more effective if there will be very good internet access that the teachers and their students would be.
Well, the claim is that the fourth industrial revolution is here and it's mostly technology.
Yes, like I'm saying that, yes. So
so we can be
the tablets need to go
infrastructural issues alongside ensuring that we are
but that's the problem.
playing catch up.
But that's the problem. You see, you are bringing in something where already there. Yeah. Then the last point of view is that the last paragraph says that teachers in the school have been trained on the proper use and handling of smart boards and tablets for the students. Do you remember? I think sometime early last year, I believe there was this story that broke about
teachers not having received yes.
Yes, and also the education minister claiming that the teachers have been trained, giving this training.
Yes.
But and money had been taken from the was it World Bank or something? But the teachers also said they had no evidence of such training that had been carried out. So these are some of the worries we have about some of these initiatives. Okay. Yeah. On paper, they are fantastic, but they end up benefiting some private entities.
And it's like most of the policies, on paper they sound fantastic, but then the problems come when we start implementing them.
Right.
But let's get into the Ghanaian Times now. Time will not allow us.
That is because we are quick to jump into cheap political propaganda. If not, I am the recipient of it. I'm telling you, I have not received it. You sit and tell me I have received it. I mean.
But I learned they're now, whatever was distributed first was just the first phase. They're now actively going out to distribute these laptops to the various schools. So let's see how it
great.
goes.
Okay,
what
so
does the Ghanaian Times say?
It says that 1992 Constitution Review Recommendation, President to pay task. Number of ministers to be capped at 25, deputy minister position to be scrapped, MPs to cease being ministers. Another one says government releases 7.4 million Ghana cedis to clear 64 containers of medical supplies. National security holds SSS awareness that see something, say something. You say you are in trouble. Creation campaign for GA market queens. Ambulance case in court. I think we've dealt with
most of them.
Most of these stories. But what I actually would want us to look at is the health sector.
Right.
I mean, when it comes to these containers. One thing we should also be looking at is the health services delivery. I think that the Okoboy haven't been head of National Health Insurance and now being moved to the Ministry of Health should actually also look into dealing with health services delivery. I mean, Ghanaians have started complaining. We've been complaining for some time, but it's becoming too many of it. Recently, I think there is a case around Winneba.
Of a woman being...
Yeah,
it's
damned
unbelievable.
in the bush.
Damned in the bush.
It's just unbelievable.
What's happening to humanity?
Because they couldn't find her relatives.
Because they cannot find her relatives. And the hospital, or I don't know if there's some workers in the hospital decided to dump her in the bush. I mean, they should investigate it. But then we should look at actually dealing with our health services delivery. We should have that sense of empathy, that sense of sympathy, that sense of patriotism should come back to us. And I always refer us to the Great Transformational Plan because we have 6 clusters. One of it has to do with the mindset and attitudinal change. And I think that as a people, we need to have that level of mindset change.
Right.
That's
okay.
what's gonna help us.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this morning, spending a part of your day with us for breakfast.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, sweetie.
But before we go, a gentle reminder that this segment is brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, and they're offering free prostate screening and free fertility screening at the various locations. Here in Accra, they're on the Spintex Road opposite the Shell signboard. In Kumasi, they're in Kronoma here, behind the Angel Educational Complex. In Takrade, they're in Anaji Estate. In Tema Community 22, in Techiman Hanswa, and Neziama in Zima. Their call lines are 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. And my guest in the studio was Mr. Yananaya Sapong of the Movement for Change, Assistant to Alan Shermanteng, and Remy Edmondson, the National Secretary of the PPP. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, sweetie.
And that's how we're wrapping up for this segment, but there's still more to come. There's sports, there's Benjamin Akapo's blunt thoughts, and a series of other conversations that resonates with you. You don't want to go away. We'll be right back.
Tom, where you are?
Hey. How's it
How are
going?
you, man? Good
Welcome
to see
back.
you. Good. Welcome back to Ghana.
Oh, it's my
How
home.
long have you been away?
Oh, I go and come all the time, so
Yeah.
I've been here 10 days this time.
10 days this time? That's a long time. Listen, it's a beautiful thing you built in here. Just doing the research for this interview alone, I found out some very interesting things about you. I didn't originally know that you came to Ghana to coach House of Folk as a 19-year-old. How does that happen? Which 19-year-old arrives from the UK to come and coach one of the greatest clubs in Ghana?
Africa.
In Africa, thank you.
Because you're a Kotoko fan, you are trying to downplay us a little bit.
That's fine, that's fine.
You know, and especially,
I like Kotoko, but it's okay, it's okay.
Especially at that time, you know, it was really on top. In the UK, I wasn't a very good player. So in the UK, it was really difficult to break in. I'd done all my coaching badges and I wanted to work in the game. And so I just had an idea, okay, maybe if I go abroad, you know, it's not a new idea, especially for European coaches to go abroad and develop their skills. And so I had an idea, and then I got a connection actually directly to Harry Zakor. He said, no problem, come down and observe. So I was there for 6 weeks. And then it didn't work out. Actually, I went to Olympics.
As well?
Yeah, so
that is why you were 19.
Starting at that age, yeah. So I think Olympics was maybe by 21 or something.
Okay.
And then I did a little bit there, and then actually with Hebertado, I went back to Haas for a little while as well. So doing a lot of, I got a lot of mentors from that. One of my early mentors was Sir Cecil Jones at Quifio. He liked me, and he used to invite me around to the house. Hebertado was another really important mentor for me, another former player of House of Oak, Robert Tete. So I was lucky that I was in the ecosystem here, and rather than coming with an idea from abroad of like, okay, this is how we do things, I got somehow connected to the big names in Ghana football, and they helped shape my ideas. And so I liked coaching, but I got the idea for the academy, and so went on another track, and then the coaching was full time, and so it was difficult to do both. And then I got a job with Sir Alex Ferguson at Man United, and that wasn't actually a full time gig. So it meant that I could work 1 week a month. I had to go to one country in Africa every month, do a full analysis for Man United. And then 3 weeks I would be here. I had a salary, but I could then really focus on the academy. So that's a little bit of the early days.
It is. I mean, and that is very impressive, because I'm wondering, for example, you come into Ghana as a teenager, Hartlefield doesn't work out, go to Olympic, doesn't quite work out as well, you come back to Hartlefield, and during that same period, somehow you landed a job with Manchester United, one of the greatest football clubs in the world.
At that time.
At that time, it still is. I mean, I'm wondering, and all of this while you were still trying to find your feet in Ghana. So how did that happen?
It was a random set of circumstances. I decided to attend like all the tournaments in Africa just to get my sort of bearings and understand the industry. So I went to an under-17 African Championships in Gambia.
Okay.
And I met the Man United.
2005?
No, maybe earlier. Under-17?
Was it the one Ghana lost to Gambia?
Yeah,
the final 2-5, yeah.
Okay.
David Duncan was the coach of the Ghana team.
And I met the Man United scout there. Okay. And he lived in Cape Town, and he liked a player from Burkina Faso.
Oh.
And I said, what are you going to do? He said, I'm not going to do anything because I don't want to go to Burkina Faso. I said, I'll go for you.
That's right.
So I went to Burkina Faso and tracked down the family and found the player, told him that I was working on behalf of the Man United scout. And so I arranged everything, and then I called, those days I didn't even have a mobile phone. I called the landline in Cape Town.
Yeah.
The wife answered, and she said, oh, he passed. And so after the funeral, I called the switchboard at Man United. I said, look, I was working on a player for Frank. That was the scout.
Right.
And he's passed, so do you want me to do anything? They said, yeah, we had the reports. And then I embellished a little bit. So I said, oh, there was also a guy in Ghana. He was looking at it. They said, oh, we didn't know anything about that guy. I said, yeah.
Oh,
so then I mentioned one guy from Mike, and I said, okay, he can come as well. So I brought the two guys up, and actually they wanted to sign the guy from Burkina Faso.
Okay.
He decided not to sign, which was a heartbreak for me.
Oh, wow.
But still, when I was there, they did a lot of assessments. They asked me to watch a lot of games, predict which players were going to make it and everything. And then at the end, Sir Alex sat me down. He said, okay, Frank has passed. I want you to be the new guy in Africa, which for me as a young guy, you know, that's the beauty of football. Like in everything else, you take your steps, you do your degrees, you pass through the process. But football, like one day you can be here, you tell the boys, the next day you can be on the pitch with Ronaldo or Mbappe. And it will happen just like that. So for me, that was a little bit like my moment. And then from that, I got so much exposure to the Man United Academy. Sir Alex gave me a lot of ideas, and I used some of those ideas to, you know, build Right to Dream. And he was great because he said, okay, every year you can bring 2 Right to Dream boys.
Oh, wow.
And so every year, the best 2 got to go to Man United, and then I would obviously scout for whoever I thought the best player in Africa was as well. So that was like one of the early motivations for our boys, was like the best 2 here are going to Man United.
Big deal.
And we never managed to get a player there, but I'm sure it's going to happen in the future.
Sooner rather than later.
Maybe.
So I'm quite sure. And if you heard the bell there, it's because we're right in the middle of we call it academic compound, or what do you call it?
Yeah, it's school. Yeah.
Of Right to Dream. The students, or they're in class right now. You want to call them footballers. Tom actually refers to them as students. It's just basically what they are.
Student athletes.
The student athletes, there you go. And we'll go to some of the classrooms, but one last thing on that Man United scouting job. There is a famous story about the John Mikel Obi episode. How involved were you? Were you the one that recommended him to Man United?
No, that was Frank.
That was Frank.
But it was like going on as I was starting. So it was an interesting process, you know. And you know, I don't know if you remember with those early AFCONs, like 2006 as well.
Yeah.
Obi was at 10, and Sir Alex saw him. You know, he even referred to him like the next Zidane, and he was playing 10 and just looked like a different player to the one that we got to know, who was obviously still a great player, but he was more offensive, and they were so excited about him. And then, you know, and then he changed his mind and went to Chelsea, and the rest is history, you know.
Yeah.
But Sully was there, Michael Essien was there,
They both went for that trial.
Yeah. So that was before, but so you know, a lot of players got really close and just missed the, you know, and actually the Man United scout in Denmark, he sadly also just passed, but his last big project was Kudus, and he was pushing like crazy that he wanted Man U to sign Kudus directly from FCN, but they didn't agree to that one either. So.
We'll get to the Kudus story, but this is one of the most distinct things I see every time I come to Right to Dream. You've got a wall here, global wall, and you have pictures, magnets, I believe, that you've stuck to different parts of the world, different countries, basically depicting where each of your graduates is. Is that what's happening on this wall?
Yeah. So the way we run it here is that we run a whole trial process across Ghana. And you have a local trial, then you have a regional trial, and then you have a final trial where you're here and you mix into the environment for about a month so that we can see really whether you're a good fit. And then if you make it, then we have a scholarship ceremony up in the dining room, and we present you with your picture, and then we make a guard of honor, and the young student athlete walks down, and then they put their picture on the map.
Okay.
And then when you graduate, you do a graduation speech. You walk down, you pick your picture off the map, and then you put it wherever you're going.
Wow.
And then once you're there, then we change the image according to an image of you performing wherever you go. So it's really part of like the culture, and then it's really nice because you can see the young kids when they're in, and they'll come and stand here for hours, and they're just looking up. Obviously, a lot of guys studying in the US and playing in the US, and then...
this is America. That's a lot of kids in the US. Wow. Probably even more than the ones in Europe.
I think so, yeah.
That's crazy.
So that's the policy here, and you know, it was. I was really lucky, like I said before, with some of my early mentors. That early on, I don't know if you remember this, but when George Weir retired, he was involved a little bit with. Midtjylland with Alaji Bimbo was doing a project.
Yeah.
So there was two, they were called Ajax pitches at the University of Legon, and we managed to get one, and then George Weir was training on the other one, and then it was really nice because just across the road in Aponglu, Abedi Pele was, so it was like this mecca of Africa's greatest legends, and I was just a young coach trying to make it, and you couldn't believe it, like wow. And even Tony Yeboah was starting a project around there as well, so there was this like center of excellence in East Legon, and then George Weir got closest to me, and for some reason he took a liking to me. And then he used to come and train at the old academy with the boys. And then in those times in Ghana, we had Ajax, Feyenoord with the big academies in Ghana. And then he asked me one day, Tom, what are you trying to achieve? I said, one day I want to have an academy like that. He said, oh, then you're going to fail. And I said, why? And he said, because they're not here for Ghana. And that's the most pertinent thing anybody's ever said to me. Yeah. And I asked him, what's the meaning? He said, you have to find something which is really here for Ghana, and then whatever you're hoping to achieve can be a byproduct. Okay. But if you're here for yourself, like Ajax were here for themselves, he said it's going to fail. And you see, it's prophetic because they failed. Absolutely. So our idea was like, okay, if we're here for Ghana, what does it mean? Let's make sure that every kid, once you're in, you're guaranteed to be in for 5 years. Because in the European model, if you have a bad season, you go home. In Europe, no problem, because you have a good life outside of your academy. But here, you know, for a kid to come into this environment and then think every year I might be asked to leave, is an untenable situation. And then we said, okay, what if a kid isn't going to make it as a footballer? We have to treat every kid as if it was our own son. So that's where we got this idea. We have an office in New York now, and we built all these pathways to say, okay, if you take your education seriously, you can end up in US on scholarship. And then the last thing was like, okay, if we're here for Ghana, then we can't do only boys, we have to do boys and girls.
That's right.
And everybody said, what's the business model behind girls? But ours was more of a cultural model inspired by George Weir. And so, of course, we have our problems like everybody, but if you go into the communities, then the coaches know that, okay, all my boys that went to Right to Dream, either they're in US studying or they made it as a pro, and even they've been taking girls from the community as well. So we try as much as we can to make the best impact we can on the Ghana education and football ecosystem. And then the byproduct of business and success of FCN should be a byproduct rather than the objective. And so that hopefully is our example, because a lot of people are trying to do academies in Africa now, is like, don't come in with the extractive mindset, try to come in and be part of the ecosystem, and that's what we try to do.
You know, the whole time just listening to you tell that story, it just says everything about it being the humble beginnings of this academy and how you started out. And I wanted to show you a picture so we can start that conversation about the very beginning. When you look at this picture, for example, this is a picture that is, what are we looking at here? This is a picture from the very beginning. And this, I presumably, is where?
Legon.
This is the University of Ghana. I thought I recognized that. Do you remember any of these kids? How many of these kids do you remember?
Of course. I remember most of them, yeah. And this is Robert Tete. He was my very first mentor in Ghana. He played for House of Oak, and then he was a teacher at GIS, and that's how I got to know him.
Oh, wow.
And then he was the very first person to start showing me the fundamentals, introducing me to people. And he sadly passed, but he's like, this place is his legacy as much as mine.
You famously started with 16 kids in your home in Jowolu. Those 16 kids, quite a number of them have become successful or went on to become successful. Some of them even playing for the national team. Who are some of it, for a lot of people that are watching that know a lot of national team footballers, who are some of the graduates from the very first class of Right to Dream?
Should be up here.
Should be up here somewhere.
Most of them are retired now, though.
Yeah.
You know, because it's 25 years ago, and
it is a long time
they
ago.
started when they were 10, 11. So the guys who we had Godfrey Saka, who played for the local Black Stars. King
Godfrey Saka, yes, the Ghana Stars. Captain.
King Osei-Jan played for the Black Stars once, but had a good career in Europe. Daniel Owusu played for, I can't remember if it was under 20 or, I think he may have played a friendly game, I can't remember, but he had a good career in Europe. And then there was like 2 or 3 other boys, Isaac Shays, Samuel Lai Mensah. They had decent careers in Europe. And then a lot of the boys went and studied in America from that early group. I think 6 of them graduated from top universities in America as well. So, you know, the crazy thing is that the trial for that early group was 100 boys. We picked 16. And then from that 16, you have 5 or 6 having full careers in Europe, 5 or 6 getting degrees. So, you know, we're still only scratching the surface here, because if from 100 you can produce those results, imagine if the kind of methodology that we have was really scaled. Ghana will have no size in world football.
Absolutely. And you know, one of the best things about this academy also has to be your scouting network, because I can imagine how difficult it is to choose 16 kids from 100. And I know that it's even worse now, in the sense that you have to choose very few from a much larger group. How do you arrive at those decisions? Because it must be very emotional even for the scouts to see every kid come out there, 1,000 kids come out there, with every single one of them looking for a pathway to get into Right to Dream, and you only have to choose a very limited number. And that limited number, you have to be sure that these are the very best and that you're not doing anybody any favors. How do you negotiate that kind of system?
It's tough. It's really tough. And you know, the starting point is that, or the first thing I'll say is that the kids who don't get in, let's say we take the top 20, the kids from number 21 down to, let's say, number 100 would get into any academy in Europe. Any academy in Europe. So you can take the guy number 100, we don't have space for him here. If he lives in Madrid, he'll be in the Real Madrid Academy. That's my view. So it shows like how much is still to be done to serve the talent and the youth of Ghana. Like we need much more of what we're doing. So I won't say Right to Dreams, but I say we need, because we're doing our part, but we need much more expansion of like talent development. You know, my view is by far Ghana's biggest asset is the talent of its children, not in football, but broadly. Then secondly, the admissions criteria is, do we think that this kid can play in the Champions League or study in the Ivy League in future.
Those are the two important.
Those are the two. So down from that, you have all kinds of metrics, academic testing, all kinds of football data-related subjective analysis of every kid, and then you have the secret sauce, which is character. And so when the kids come and live here, we have some amazing pastoral staff here who can really analyze, like, okay, which kids have the perspective, the hunger, the discipline, all the mental attributes that are required. Because as we all know, like, ultimately that's what defines success rather than your ability to write an exam or control a football. So it's those three factors that come together, and now it's a well kind of oiled machine with a lot of staff who are super experienced in that.
I mean, because it begs the obvious question, especially right at the beginning. I mean, now we'll get to that. Now you're able to transfer players for decent amount of money, but when you first started, and it's worth noting that every kid here is on scholarship. No one pays to come here. It's all free. So the question ultimately is, how do you, when you started, how were you funding all that scholarship? Because at the time you weren't also transferring players, so there was no income coming in. How did it all work out at the beginning?
So I
see Barack Obama classroom.
Yeah.
You named all the classrooms?
All the classrooms are named, yeah.
Oh, I see Johnson Stadium there.
Yeah.
All named after presidents?
No. We have a variety.
You have a Tom Vernon?
No, definitely not.
No Tom Vernon classroom?
No, this is about African role modeling, you know.
It is.
So
there's a staff room there.
Yeah.
I would have liked to check out one of the classrooms.
We'll go in the IT lab here.
Oh, okay. That's okay. Yeah. So back to my question about how you funded the scholarships at the beginning, even putting up the structure, all these classrooms, education, school, feeding. You feed all of them. It's all 100% fully funded. How did you do that at the beginning?
I was lucky. I had an idea for another business when I in Ghana.
Okay.
And my idea was that there was a lot of foreigners coming down to teach English in schools in Ghana, and they were paying for it.
Right.
And so
they were paying to come.
They were paying to come.
I see.
So my idea was, why not, if you have a passion for football like me, why not come down and then coach? And I knew all the coast clubs in Accra.
Yeah.
And so I set up a company in the UK called Gap Sports Abroad.
Okay.
And the idea was, if you started doing your coaching badges and you were young and you wanted an experience, you could come down. I rented a house for all of them, and then
more or less like an internship.
Exactly. And then they worked with all the coast clubs in Accra. And so, and you could charge pretty good money because the parents were often wanted to make sure that their kids were safe in Africa, all this stuff. And so that business was really successful.
Okay.
And that was my private business, but I used all the profits to fund the academy. So I managed to run the academy for 10 years with that business, and then I managed to build all of this from that business.
That is unbelievable. That is incredible, because it's one part of the, is the ICT lab?
Yeah, we'll go in.
Okay,
Yeah.
my Angelo classroom. I love mine. I'm an English student. Oh, wow. Hello.
Hello, guys.
How are you?
You're live on Joy FM, so make sure you look nice.
Live with Joy News, Joy Prime, everything Joy. How are you guys? How are you doing? Good. You were out? Good. ICT? Yeah. So, what, Tom, what's happening here? Hi, nice to meet you. You're in China? You're Mr. Barron as well. Yeah, very nice to meet you.
Yeah, that's my oldest son. He's teaching here.
Right now we're just doing video editing, I guess. Just teaching them.
Basic video editing or?
Yeah, pretty standard video editing.
Like video analysis software kind of thing?
No, that's for their coaching class. I'm just teaching them how to edit videos, how to post them, how to save them.
How to create their own content, basically.
Yeah, create their own content, edit their own media, basically.
That's amazing.
One of the great things that happens here is we have a robotics program.
Yeah.
Thanks, buddy. And we've been as far as world champion in robotics. So we've been Ghana champion many times. You can see all of our certificates up here. And then our robotics program is one of the best programs that we run at Right to Dream.
Robotics.
Yeah. So a lot of the footballers that you see playing out there, they've been as far as the World Championships in robotics as well.
You know, and for me, like, one of the most impressive things, again, is the educational aspect of this. When did you, because you mentioned a very important aspect of it, when did it become like so critical for you to add education, to incorporate and make it a mandatory aspect of the academy? Because there have been, I'm sure, of course, you have been in this country long enough to know that, and especially around the time you came, footballers really didn't care that much about school. It was just about the talent. But you insisted and made this a critical aspect of the academy. How did you get that idea, and how has that helped you in the long run?
I think the George Weah story that I told you is the key.
Was the inspiration?
You know, so it's like if you're here for Ghana, you know, you would never, if you look at a lot of football academies in Africa, you would never want your own son to be there.
Yes.
But in your example, even if your son is not a good footballer, you would be happy still for him to be here.
Of course.
So that was kind of the idea. Was like, how would you want it for your own son? If you're not thinking that way, then why are you doing it like that? And is it just because there's not much regulation, so you can get away with whatever you want, or do you want to do the right thing?
Yeah. And I'm guessing that also made it easier for you to convince parents to let their kids come, because there are some parents who would have, and I think it's happening in the past, where a lot of Ghanaians would say, you know what, I was so good at football, but my parents didn't let me play football because they wanted me to go to school. This solves that problem, because then parents can easily let their kids come because they know that they still have school.
But you know, I mentioned before that I was really close with Jones in the early days, and he used to talk about the academicals and the older generation, you know. 60s. So people talk about Ghana in the context of that, like footballers are kobolos, and in like 2000s and everything, parents don't let them do it. But really, historically, there's a precedent of what we do being the actual model that Ghana adopted. Yeah. So Jones as well was a big part in like talking about that. Herbert Addo was the same, you know, highly educated coaches. And so that was like part of the idea. George was also part of the inspiration around that. And then we just saw what it would do for our culture, you know, like if you're in an academy and you know that, okay, they like this guy and this guy, so they're focused on them for football and the rest of us are just here to support them, gradually the culture will start to deteriorate. But if you know, like, okay, they think this guy is the next superstar footballer, but I'm going to Stanford University, then you worry less about somebody else and what they're getting, and you focus on your own thing more. So it's a big part for the, you know, the culture.
And this is the wall you spoke about earlier, the graduation wall, if I can call it that. And this basically has a list of every single...
So this is international, so we just hit 50 internationals.
Oh, these are international?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I see there, international honors. So these are players who have played for their national teams, not just Ghana.
Yeah.
And, oh wow, that list is long.
So this
is big. Oh, wow.
That's the professional players.
Professional players.
Yeah.
So all these players are playing professionally from Right to Dream.
Yeah. So they all pick their picture like I showed you and put it up on there.
And you mentioned, is this the overall best player? So each year you award an overall best player.
Yeah, so we have one for the best player in the academy. Sorry, we should have prepared better for you.
Yeah.
And then one for the overall best player in Europe. So at the Christmas party, then we give the award, and often the player will do a video and you know, send it back to motivate the next generation.
Yeah. So I can see very familiar names. Mohamed Kudus was named Best Academy Player 2 times.
Yeah.
In 2016 and also in 2017.
Yeah.
And 2017, did he co-win it with Ibrahim Sadiq? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. You know, I see one name there, and I'm very impressed. Not necessarily because of just his footballing, you know, his footballing ability, and we'll talk about that as well. Some of the most talented players you've had come through the academy. But Maxwell Wollasey, he's doing a lot of work
in the community. Yeah.
In the community, this is an essential part of what you do here, the culture you do here. That it's not just about succeeding for yourself, but also being community champions.
Yeah, and one of our early ideas was like, you should give back to Right to Dream, but we've changed that now because, you know, we've found our way, we're doing okay. So we really want you to think about the things that are closest to you and your community. So Maxwell is like a son to me, and he's one of the biggest inspirations that Right to Dream ever had, because he's used the education that he got here in a structured way to build the hijab project. He decided his passion was creating an environment for Muslim girls in Nima and now beyond to experience and develop their lives through football. And the guy's just flying with it. At Nike, they love him. He's one of the most popular athletes that they have, you know, even in a huge organization like that. So he's a fantastic guy and he's a role model. And then this is how we recognize that. So we have the Academy Significant Contribution Award. And that doesn't mean that you necessarily did something for the Academy. It might be something that you did for your community as well. So
just an impact maker.
Exactly.
One of the, and this is a very recognizable name for, I mean, and it goes to people that really follow the Academy. We say Buddha.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite Academy graduates you have, not just because he's a good footballer. I think he's a very good footballer. He's a Burkina Faso international. But he is a smart kid in school. He's an Ivy League graduate.
Stanford, yeah.
Stanford. And he was finishing his degree, I read somewhere, while playing professionally
in the MLS,
for San Jose
Earthquake. Yeah.
I mean, that is ridiculous, you know, to be able to do that, you know, and not just him. There's quite a number of them that I have seen, especially those in the US system who are going professional. I think Shakur Mohammed is another one, the Kumasi kid, that are doing. How do you teach them that life academic balance? You know, I mean, it all starts from here. But then when they go to the US, it becomes a lot easier for them.
I would say it starts before here. And I think, you know, Right to Dream, you can call it like a polishing school, but, you know, my belief is that the Ghanaian village is the center of excellence. And the development mindset that exists in the village, these ideas that it takes a village to raise a child, the communal idea that everybody can correct a kid and set them in the right direction, even, you know, the kind of pitches and the kind of coaches that we have in Ghana from 2 to 10, for me, is the best in the world. Because there's so many elements in terms of like how village technical development in football works. So it's not like we teach these players that everybody knows to have such great technique or have such discipline or have such communal. Is Ghana. And so the objective for our CEO here is to make sure that this place retains like the best of Ghanaian cultural essence. It's not an idea from outside. Like we saw all the development methodology from outside with the Ajaxes in the finals. We saw it all fail here. And so the idea here is just to make the best of the way that Ghana already sees development, the way that Ghana already sees sport, and then you kind of refine and evolve that. So, you know, and then we think that's such a powerful idea that we tried to take that idea to Europe and put it in Denmark, in Egypt, in California, because a lot of like the strength and power that we have in the development methodology in Ghana, people have lost sight because we have so many day-to-day issues around poverty, corruption, that we're not seeing like actually underneath the surface. This is one of the most world-class development philosophies you can find in the world, and it's nothing to do with me. I didn't invent any of that stuff. It was here, and then I was lucky. I kept talking about my mentors to be a little bit inspired by people to get pointed in the right direction, and then I had the conviction to follow that direction, which can be difficult because everything outside looks so shiny and it looks like it's working better than here. So it's so easy if you're at Man U to say, oh, maybe I should do it the Man U way. But a lot of mistakes, trial and error, but ultimately we managed to like hold on to that essence, and that's why Eddie is our CEO, and then that's why we have so many Ghanaian leaders here who know how to bring that to life.
You've got a lot of names on this one. I want to ask you one more question about the names here, because is there one name here that you look at and then something just switches in your brain? It doesn't necessarily mean the most successful, but perhaps one name that really just sticks out for some reason, because thousands of kids have gone through this academy. 25 years is a long time. So this is a really hard thing to ask you to do, But for some reason, is there one name on this wall, or maybe a couple, that just stand out for some reason? It doesn't even have to be football and reason. It's a tough one.
Yeah, you know, Louisa was our first girl into the academy, and she tragically passed away earlier this year.
Oh, wow.
And she was studying engineering in Milwaukee, and she was our first girl here, first girl to play for Ghana, and then she passed of a heart attack unexpectedly at 22 years old.
Oh my God.
So, you know, we're going to rename this award after her, and it was a tragedy. And when we started the Girls Academy, I didn't really believe it was going to work. And then when I met her, I was like, okay, it's going to work. And actually, like, if I could have my time back, I may have started with girls rather than boys.
Wow.
And so you know, we don't have too many girls on this list with international. On the scholarship list, we have a lot. And then, well, on the boys' side, that's really hard.
I mean, I've got a couple of them are my friends. David is a good friend.
Yeah.
One of those kids that you first sent to the UK.
Yeah, him and Waris went together to the UK, and that's where we were quite limited at that time on the number of options we had.
Okay.
And so we didn't have many connections with professional football clubs at the time. So some of our guys would be like, look, we know you're good, but go and study, show yourself, and then you try and find your way from there. So it's crazy, really, that like David and Waris went to football college in England. Actually, my son's just about to go there. And then Waris ended up playing Champions League World Cup. David played Champions League qualifiers. Both of them are just getting towards retirement. I've been with both of them in the last 2 months. They're thinking about how they can now step back in, support the Right to Dream ecosystem. So top guys. And then
Ndinamilo, a very good morning to all of you, wherever you are. It's time now for yours truly to share his blunt thoughts with you. It's another Friday morning, and I'm not going to disappoint you. I am going to go ahead. I've titled today's thoughts, Political Callousness and an Egregious Disregard for Life. Misleadership at its best. Political callousness and an egregious disregard for life, misleadership at its best. Let me start from here. I don't know whether you've seen that story yet, but even as I talk about misleadership, two issues I'm going to be talking about, I wanted to start off from the standpoint of what the true face of leadership looks like. Of what, when we like waxing lyrical, when we go waxing lyrical about rule of law and all of that, what it looks like. If you followed the case of Donald John Trump, you would see he has now become the first former president, or at that level, to be convicted of a felony. The US, they simply don't care. Those are the democracies we want to emulate. But let's look on the flip side. So Republican, the Democrats, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son. You know, the gun charges, the use of, cocaine and all of that at the time. His father has come out to say, the question was asked, and his father has come out to say that he will not interfere, he will not reduce his sentence, that he will not in any way pardon his son. His own flesh and blood is the first time a president's son has been convicted of something of the sort. And his father says, I am not going to interfere. Lie. I will not commute the sentence. I will not interfere with it in any way. And if he is sentenced, he will serve the full thing. That is the face, when you look in a mirror, of leadership. Not what we see here. We free people even before, yes, indeed, the law says you are innocent until you're proven guilty. But here, we declare you innocent without any process to determine whether or not you're guilty. I just wanted to start from there because I asked him, time. In Kaye, so Kakaya say, oh, man, no book it in so can't be a Makawi. Anyway, let me get to the two major issues I want to deal with this morning because they left me in angst, anger, furious. Starting with this gentleman. Can I even call him that? Ernest Frimpong is the MPP's parliamentary candidate for Amenfi East. And this man, who wants to go to our parliament, said this. He was interacting with some people. He says he was talking about legal mining, but we'll see the consequence of what he said. Operation Halt, Galam Stop, whatever. Soldiers that ambush you, we have cancelled all those operations. The fact that they've been cancelled doesn't mean there's no fight against Galamsey. He says, so if anyone comes to your site, you have the right to question him on his mission there. Okay, fair. Let's go to the next slide. Then now he says, but if anyone comes around and says, because he is a soldier, leave the site and dismantle your machines. And if these are illegal miners, what is he trying to say? Don't be moved by the uniform he is wearing. This line is egregious. It is shockingly bad. That's the meaning of that word. An officer in uniform, it's now that for some reason we disrespect the uniform. An officer in uniform, a soldier, if he beats you, equally beat him. I don't know. You see, this is a man who, if he becomes member of parliament, and only in a place like this, he would sit on security councils, right? And this person is saying, if he beats you, equally beat him. Fight him. I will come to your defense. I don't know whether he's Superman or something, so that he talks about WhatsApp groups on which, the minister and others are on, and that they will see and react. But it goes on. Next slide. In the aftermath of what he said, shockingly, in the aftermath, a military officer was assaulted by suspected illegal miners, not allegedly. He was assaulted at the Wasa East District in the Western region. The incident happened when the soldier visited an illegal mining site. You see, words. An illegal mining site with 3 colleagues. The officer allegedly suffered cutlass wounds on the head and hands. In fact, they chased him to a filling station. They wanted to strike his head. They got a bit of it, but he kept defending with his hands, and so his hands were affected. I don't know, in a country that has had the sort of situation in which we had with Major Mahama and Denchambwase and the court process, how can someone vying to the high office of parliament say something like this? Especially with what we have experienced in this country. Anyway, then the Ghana Armed Forces react, and they say the Ghana Armed Forces has taken note of viral videos on social media calling for attacks on soldiers and other security personnel. We strongly wish to caution the public against such utterances. Next slide. It is important to note soldiers, like any individuals, have the right to life, have the right to self-defense when faced with imminent threats or attacks that pose a danger to their lives or the lives of others. Fair point. Next slide. But then the NDC comes through, reacting on the same matter, and they feel aggrieved. Why? They say, unless the Ghana Armed Forces has been politically compromised, why would they conceal the details of calling out the person or the persons, so Ernest and others, in the viral video and warning them directly, right? If the Ghana Armed Forces continues in this manner, it loses respect, and that will pose future danger for the country. Be bold to call out and caution Ernest Frimpong. It's neither here nor there like that, right? But my point, even beyond the Ghana Armed Forces calling out this person, the leadership of the New Patriotic Party, what have they done? This is shocking because, you see, it doesn't matter. I keep saying, whose ox is God? Or your NDC new, or your MPP new, Emranu Webu, and I say Omu. We dim Ranoso, Odifo. Let's do what is right. If I were to get into a sticky situation, no one will say because I am Benjamin Akakpo, I host the AM show. So why is it that for the other person, oh, that one, some have called for this person's arrest. There have been some movements from, officialdom when it comes to the security officers. But is this how we are treating this matter with kid gloves? Would we treat an ordinary Joe, an ordinary Jade, an ordinary Kofi, an ordinary Amma in that way? The hypocrisy in this country stinks to the high heavens. I said it. I said it. Next slide. Then you have the ranking member on the Defense and Interior Committee, James Agalga, saying, even if it is true that the military and police embark upon unauthorized operations in his constituency, and sometimes that may be the case, what are they supposed to do? Or as a candidate on the ruling party's ticket, why wouldn't he complain with the regional police command or district police command? Anyway, I'm sure I want to. But now, even moving away from that, something that has broken my heart. This Global Fund issue. So walk with me through it. The Global Fund, which has been set up, and it is indeed global, every country benefits from it, at least those who need it. The total value of commodities given to Ghana, $45 million. Multiply that by 16. That's it in cedis. Next slide. The duration for 12 months. This is how long we have kept this medication and all of that there. Now, local pharmacy, drugstore, now what's the lifespan? Usually 1 or 2 years thereabouts. 12 months. They've been sitting there. And we know that if they have to be destroyed, some of them, from what we've heard, will be going bad, expiring, first quarter of 2025. And we'll have to spend your taxpayers' money and my taxpayers' money and destroy them because you can't just go and throw them anywhere. This is medication. You have to dispose of them properly. What a beautiful country. Next slide. Now, 14 out of the 182 containers were cleared in April 2024, about 2.5 months ago. The government promised to clear the remaining containers within 1 week following this. 1 week. And I remember our cameras were there. It has been 8 weeks. So an additional 7 weeks, 2 months. And only 48 out of the 168 containers have been cleared. That leaves you with a deficit of 120 containers remaining at the port. Now, next slide. According to the Global Fund, they have never witnessed, underline, never witnessed anything as dumbfounding, and it is indeed dumb on our part. Ejimisem, maka. Ejimisem niedino. Obi abeche wadie. Free! You can't buy it yourself. Want to know, get to know want. Them give to you. Free. And I'll get to something that will even buckle your mind further. As what is currently happening in Ghana, never, since 2002 or so that we started doing this, never has this happened. But why should I be surprised? Even vaccines for children. You know the story. Next slide. Since 2002, Ghana has never experienced this kind of challenge in receiving Global Fund commodities. So what has changed? Maybe the Finance Ministry, the Health Ministry, and others can help us. I will not necessarily blame Dr. Okoboy, though he's at the helm of affairs, so he will catch some fire. He will catch some stray bullets. But what has been happening over time, even when the former health minister was there, and the Finance Ministry, what has happened? So we couldn't clear these goods because of 7 million cedis. After they had given you money to clear them, and you were now telling them about poor charges. What sort of country is this? Next slide. Now, the response from the Ministry of Health. The Ministry of Health has now received an amount of 7.4 million Ghana cedis from the Ministry of Finance for the payment of demurrage for the clearance of Global Fund outstanding containers at the Tema port. Next slide. It is expected that with the funds received, all outstanding containers will be cleared by the end of June 2024. By June, dear. Next slide. Let's get some reactions. So, Isaac Ofeiba is Public Relations Officer at the Ministry of Health. On June 11th, he said, hopefully we'll clear the containers by next week. on June 11th. We also want to put it on record that we have only mosquito nets and we don't have anything like HIV drugs or TB drugs. But let me just clarify something here. The last time I spoke to Mr. Otsin, okay, he made mention of the fact, and he is with, I think, the Ghana HIV Network, GANET. You see, while, mind you, first off, children, the most vulnerable, women, if you go and you can't get the insecticide-treated nets, do you know what happens? Malaria load, what happens on the hospitals, you can't get what you need to deal with malaria, that is there. TB, they may say that, oh, there's not much in there. But here's the important thing. Not the only important thing, but a crucial point. While we took stock in the initial being, and there are 250,000 plus people who depend on this HIV medication, among the ARTs, among others, 250,000 of them. By the end of just about July, those supplies would have been exhausted. The Global Fund has issued a caveat that if you don't use these ones, if you don't clear and use, we are not giving you a new batch. Because they are tired of defending stupidity. Okay? So that means, if we are not careful, while for now we have HIV medication and all of that, if by July we've not completed all of these processes, the Global Fund will not give us new HIV logistics when it comes to health. So still, it boils down to the same point. A request letter was sent to the Ministry of Finance to assist in the securing of auction chits for the outstanding 64 containers, which comprises 1 TB medication container, the remaining mosquito nets, and the outstanding third-party charges. So some TB medication. And you know that there's a bit of a triad. Sometimes TB, HIV, people get these things together when they are infected. Let's go to the next slide. And this is where we will wrap up. When Global Fund, and this is Kwabena Minta Akando, he is a ranking member on the Health Committee. When the Global Fund was shipping this commodity to Ghana, they added something for clearing, and per my calculation, they added not less than $2 million. That is what? 32 million cedis. And then we told them, the figure it may hover around this, but someone gives you drugs worth 45 million. Then they add money for clearing. And now you go and say, oh, we've increased our port charges, so 7.4 million Ghana cedis. We don't have it. But people have such sums all over their houses. If that makes sense to you, I don't know. But it doesn't to me. Doesn't. Sometimes I think of this country, and in a way, I regret certain things. But Ghana is our motherland. And whatever we must do to make this country better, we shall. So let's together do it. Doesn't matter, NDC, MPP, all that nonsense. No. It's Ghana. Like Nkrumah said, we face neither east nor west. We face forward. Don't face NDC. Don't face MPP. Face Ghana and the way forward. And that's how we'll develop. The development starts with a change in mindset. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. These are my blunt thoughts shared with you, raw, hot, unedited, undiluted. I know some people don't like what I do, but do it, I will continue to. Thank you for watching, and God bless Ghana, and make her great and strong. Welcome back on the AM show. Time now for us to talk about the cost of living and many other things in between. It's a crucial issue for everybody now because, Charlie, people keep saying, hey, tomato bako, 5 Ghana cedis. So exactly how much more are you paying for some of those food items that you consume? We'll be telling you about our basket, some of the things that the Ghana Statistical Service takes consideration of when they put these figures forward. You know that inflation has dipped marginally, you could say. But what does it mean for the ordinary person out there. What is the detail? What is the breakdown? We're glad this morning to host Professor Samuel Kobena Enim. He is head of the Ghana Statistical Service. And as always, he's been so gracious, he joins us in the studio this morning. Prof, good morning.
Good morning, Benjamin. Thank you.
Aiko.
Yeah.
I keep celebrating you, and I do it on air even, because I think you're a fine gentleman doing a fine job.
Thank you.
Not to mention intelligence, so keep up with the good work.
Thank you.
But let's get into what the latest inflationary figure is, what the difference is month on month or year on year, and we'll take it from there in terms of what it actually means for the ordinary Ghanaian. But tell us about the latest inflationary figure and maybe the items in your basket that you used. Has it changed? Have you added on any others? Any details you can share with us?
Thank you very much, Benjamin, and it's always a delight to share further insights on the press releases that we do on a monthly basis, because this gives us another platform to go into the details rather than just talking about the headline figures. So for May 2024, we put out an inflation figure year on year, and I'm emphasizing year on year of 23.1% relative to the 25.0 that we recorded for April 2024, which indicates that year on year rate of inflation has decreased by 1.9 percentage points. On a month-on-month basis, we put out a figure for May 2024 as 3.2% relative to 1.8% for April 2024, indicating an increase in month-on-month inflation. So the key take-home message is that from a year-on-year perspective and a month-on-month perspective, they are moving in different directions. While we are seeing an increase on a year-on-year basis, a decrease on a year-on-year basis, we are seeing an increase on a month-on-month basis. In terms of the basket for the computation, there
So before you get to the basket, so then that explains, because people have asked, but the cost of the thing I'm buying has gone up. How are they saying inflation is reducing? That explains that angle,
yes.
Right?
And let me throw further light on that. When we say year-on-year inflation, all that it means is that we are comparing May 2024 to May 2023. And when we do releases, we try to identify what is driving the change in the inflation figures. If you look at our CPI figures for 2023, it was between April and May 2023 that we saw the highest increase. It moved from 170.6 to 178.7. 8.1 point difference between April 2023 and May 2023. If you are calculating May 2024 figures, this is what is going to affect your denominator, because the calculation of rate of inflation is the current period consumer price index minus the previous period consumer price index divided by the previous period consumer price index. So the computation in current terms is going to take into account what happened in May 2023. In current period, that is between April 2024 and May 2024, we saw an increase in consumer price index by 6.7 points. In April 2024, it was 213.3, and now it's 220.0, indicating a 6.7 point increase in our consumer price index. So in current terms, clearly, prices of goods and services are going up, and that is why on a month-on-month basis, we've moved from 1.8% to 3.2%.
I see. So that is clear. And even when you talk about that, there was a time we had a conversation and you kept talking about personal inflation and everything in between, which makes sense, because if you choose to buy certain things that are imported, Irish potatoes and the rest, your inflation will be higher than the person who chooses maybe cassava and some other things. But at the same time, we've got to the point where this personal inflation may not be such a crucial element in terms of the basics, because guess what? Now, tomatoes are more. 5 Ghana cedis for one. You would be lucky to get it for 4 Ghana cedis and all that. Onions, how much are pepper? I mean, you deal with these figures. Now we are looking at a crate of tomatoes that was going for about 1,500 cedis just in January last year or so, going for 7,000 cedis. How much is that in inflation? So many times more. A difference of 5,500 cedis. So does that really it still applies, but how relevant is it today? Because even the very basic things we will all eat, you can't run away from the tomatoes for your stew, or the eggs and stuff, have shot up astronomically. And you can see some of them right now in terms of the pricing. So how relevant is that, the personal inflationary bit?
So let me approach it from the perspective of the additional information that we put out anytime we give out the headline figures. I think for the past 2 years, after putting out the headline figures, we add on the 20 items that have seen the highest price changes on a year-on-year basis and on a month-on-month basis, and also pick up the items that have significant weight. And we do that for 2 reasons. In May 2024, of the 20 items, we identify 2 of them that have significant weight. And what we mean by significant weight is a single item that has a weight of more than 1. And keep in mind that we have 307 items in the basket.
Okay.
And all would have to add up to 100. So if one of them has a weight of more than 1,
that's huge.
That's huge.
It means the impact of that thing alone is because if it is 300 plus and factoring down to 100, it means everyone is going to be 0 point something.
0.3, thereabout.
Yes.
And then you have one of them or some of them having weights more than 1. So we put out these items to advise both government and individuals. And we tell government that if you want to drive down inflation rate, identify the items that have significant weight and continue to see significant increases in prices. And one of these items is tomatoes. And we've been seeing this in the last 12 months that consistently tomatoes with a weight of 1.2 is currently seeing a price change of about 39%, almost 40%. Yam was the second item in the basket. Yam has a weight of 1.6 and also saw a price change year on year by 37.4%. So although at the national level, year on year, we are seeing price decreases in terms of changes, when you come to some individual items like tomatoes and yam, as I've indicated, with significant weights, they are not decreasing as we are seeing for the overall inflation. Indeed, we are recording changes, 37% for yam, 37.4% for yam, and 39% for tomatoes. From the individual perspective, we think that this is very important because there are certain things that you can have substitute for them, and there are certain things that you cannot.
No substitutes.
Exactly. As you rightly said, if you look at your basket of consumption and you say that you cannot do away with tomatoes, then that is what it is. You have to deal with it. But if it comes to something like yam and you can have an alternative to it, and we are telling you that prices at certain point in time show significant changes for some commodities like yam, then as an individual, you need to see how you adjust your basket when you think about your personal inflation. And that is why we've provided that too.
And if you look at, for example, the figure, the chart we're looking at currently, look at them. Maybe you may say, okay, in Trawa, it depends on your taste, especially for a yam lover. In Trawa, maybe the garden eggs maybe, or aubergine may be crucial to you. But you could say 56.3%. Okay, can I find a substitute for that? Maybe I'll use konsuswa, the turkey berries instead. Cabbage, maybe I can say that, I'll take it out. Carrots, 44.4%, I may take it out. But the rest, you can't do anything about them. Onions, yam. Okay, so apple as well, you can take that out. But the okra or nkrumah, tomatoes, dried pepper, green pepper, or the bell peppers, there's nothing you can do about those. You will use them. Especially because we love spices and all, you will use them, which means you are stuck. You're stuck with the...
I mean, Benjamin, you're absolutely right. That is why, as much as possible, we do this disaggregation so that households can make that decision in terms of what you don't have any option with and what you have an option for in terms of variation. Indeed, going forward, we're trying to calculate the inflation rate that affects the poor people and inflation rate that affects the non-poor people. And for the poor people, we'll be talking about commodities like you said, tomatoes, pepper, onions that
everybody uses.
I mean, irrespective of your status, whether you are poor or non-poor, you have to use them. And clearly, you might see that if price changes with these items keeps changing, then the inflation for the poor will be higher than the non-poor in terms of the essentials that are seeing price changes.
And this, I mean, to stretch it a little, also impacts health. Because then you may have a lot of people, and yes, we have health-wise, you may know that the sausages and the rest have their own. Someone may be forced now, because even eggs now I hear about 4 cedis. So let me do more sausages and all of that, because I can't afford the fish. The fish is what, 20, 25, 30 cedis plus. I can't afford it, so I'll make do with this. But you're eating that consistently and you don't know what you may be getting from there. I'm not demonizing anyone's product. I'm just saying that health-wise, some of the things we know. But let's now come to the basket. What goes into the basket? Have you added on any items? What is the story there?
Benjamin, before I get to the basket, let me say something little about what you said. And it's very important we think about it as a country in terms of what statistics we need and how it impacts the policy that we're talking about. We currently have a technical team working towards exactly what you're talking about in terms of cost of living adjustments for health implications.
Wow.
And we're going to look at our basket and we're going to see things that are seeing significant price changes and the implications on our health. We always would want a situation where we do this with the implementing agencies and say that this is an indicator that we want to keep an eye on so that it wouldn't be a supply-driven approach where GSS keeps producing this and it doesn't find its way in policy document. But if fortunately this finds its way in policy documents, it's something that we can easily calculate based on the basket that we have in terms of the health implications. For instance, if you continue to see ready-made food, which we know a lot of people patronize and it's continue seeing high increases in prices.
Especially now where people are saying that they prefer to buy than cook.
Exactly.
Because if I'm going to cook jollof rice for a family of maybe 4, and maybe I buy it, we can manage rather than go and do the cooking. By the time I'm done cooking, gas or charcoal or whatever, I have spent so much, so I prefer to go and buy.
Indeed, if you look at the food basket, ready-made food is one of the 5 items that have the highest weights. And it's always impacting on food inflation. So these are the things that we need to talk about when it comes to disaggregating the inflation figures away from the headline stories. Coming back to the basket, there are 3 variables that we use in computing consumer price index and rate of inflation. These are prices, quantities, and the third one is the weights that we have on the items in the basket. And that simply means that the items that we have in the basket have different levels of importance to different people in the country.
Right.
So at any point in time, we want to find out that do we have more importance for tomatoes relative to onion, relative to pepper. So if you go into our basket, as I indicated, tomatoes has a weight of 1.7. So it tells you the number of people who consume tomatoes. Yam has a weight of 1.6. So in the basket, for us to be able to get the weight, we have to do a Ghana Living Standard survey. And that takes 5 years, and at any point in time, you need to do it when you have a relatively stable economic period where you can use that to rebase your GDP. So the last time we did that was 2017, 2018. And as we currently speak, we have field officers that we are deploying to do data collection for the Ghana Living Standard survey. So since 2017, 2018, we've been using this basket of 307 items for the computation of CPI and rate of inflation.
So we're still using the 300?
We have not changed the basket for the computation of CPI.
Okay, all right. Now, if you look at it as well, so per even your release, the assumption is that the items in the basket are purchased each month, hence you capture also the monthly price changes. You do this, is it midway through every month?
No, we do it in the first week of every month.
First week of every month.
So in the first, and sometimes it stretches to, at the latest, the second week of every month. But as a service, we've done a study to see how collecting the prices and quantities in different weeks of the month would impact. And there's no impact, or it doesn't matter whether you collect in the first week, the second week, the third week, or the fourth week. The simple reason is that even if we see price changes in the second week, and it doesn't come up in the month that we are doing the release, it's going to impact in the next month when we collect the data in the first week of the month.
All right. So let's do this. It's crucial to, yesterday I had the government spokesperson on governance and security, Pogre Bwachedankwa here, and he said that, when we're talking about tomato prices, 5 cedis and the rest, he said that, I go to the Achimota market at 4 a.m., and I'm able to get it for 2 cedis. And I don't know how many people will go to the market at 4 a.m., but there were some people who sent in messages challenging what he was saying. Now, if you look at what he just told me, the factors you take stock of, prices, quantity, and then the weight of those items. You do this in 57 markets, 8,337 outlets, and collect for approximately 47,800 products every month across the length and breadth of Ghana. But how watertight is that process? I mean, it can't be perfect, but how much weight can we put on that process? Because sometimes some people will say, oh, they say this and that, but the price of this on the market, where I buy from, the change is much more radical than, so give us a finer understanding of that.
So two things here. One is, how did we identify the 57 markets? And the baseline information is that the 57 markets are represented across all the 16 administrative regions. So then we can generalize for the regions and then do the computation for the national. And the identification of the 57 markets was based on a number of factors in terms of, as I indicated earlier on, whether it has regional representation and whether it's a market that we have a lot of patronage in terms of where people are. You'll all agree that when you go into a certain geographical area like Greater Accra region, who doubts Kaneshi market as a central point? Who doubt Medina market as a central? Who doubt Mokola market as a central point? Yes, so these are market centers that we know the patronage of people who go there, and that would be the basis for doing that. So from the selection point of view, that is a process that we go through. When it comes to the computation part, and thankfully now that a lot of things are being automated, we don't do things manually. Once the data is collected at the regional level, it goes through a procedure that we call reproducible analytical pipeline. And all that it means is that once the data collectors put the data in the system, we check for any outliers that we have. The regions will do that. Then when it comes to HQ, we do the same. So there's minimal human intervention in the processes of computing it. And we have certain benchmarks and we see that a particular price has gone up by, let's say, 25%. We quickly will call the regional statistician, we'll follow up with the data collector to double check whether that price change is real, especially when it doesn't conform with neighboring regions and that. So we have protocols for quality assuring the processes both from the sampling point of view and the computation point of view in arriving at our figures.
Okay, so in other words, what's the term they use? The margin of error is minimal.
Very minimal. Very minimal. And we always would want to benchmark what we do with other processes. Somewhere last year, we sent all our data, our historical data, which is on our website, and that is when we started doing the reproducible analytical pipeline, where we our collaboration with the Office for National Statistics, we got them to go through our processes, look at the historical figures that we have, and then give us a report on how, again, as you said, the margin of error is very negligible.
I will quickly get into the latest inflationary figure, food and non-food inflation, as well as inflation for locally produced items and inflation for imported items. But a quick question, something came to mind. Your inflationary calculator, is it still...
Yes, the personal inflation, yes.
The personal inflation.
Yes, on our website.
Where can people go? For example, if someone is watching now and thinks, okay, things have changed for me, I can't really gauge. Where can they go to access it? And then you can be able to calculate, okay, so if I buy 10 apples this month, that is my habit, not mine, but let's say for this person, and maybe X, Y of that, what is it going to mean for me cost-wise? Where can they go?
So it's on our website, that is statsghana.gov.gh. If you Google that, statsghana.gov.gh. If you Google that, it takes you to our website. And once you get onto the landing page, the home page, on the top right, you see the personal inflation calculator tab there. You click on it, and then it gives you the opportunity to key in the commodities that you are buying and the expenditure, the prices associated with that. Then it gives you your personal inflation calculator. So it's accessible from our website.
Okay, so please make use of it. If you are struggling with, just go there and get it done. So now let's get into the breakdown for May in terms of the disaggregation, food, non-food, imported versus locally produced. What are the changes? What do they mean?
So again, we're going to look at this from the year-on-year and the month-on-month so that we put better context to the distribution of overall inflation across food and non-food. So for May 2024, we saw non-food inflation recording a higher value than food inflation. So non-food inflation was 23.6%, food inflation was 22.6%, indicating a 1 percentage point difference between food and non-food inflation. Benjamin, quickly the next thing is, between food and non-food, which of them has the highest weight when it comes to the computation of overall inflation?
Yeah.
Food and non-alcoholic beverages has a weight of 42.7%.
42.7%.
42.7%. And non-food inflation has a weight that is the half of it, which is 57.3%, giving us the 100% for food and non-food inflation. So anytime you see non-food having a higher rate of inflation, in this case 23.6%, with a higher weight of 57.3%, it tells you that the inflation that we recorded in May 2024, overall inflation, was influenced by non-food inflation. Because one, it recorded the highest rate of inflation, and two, it has the highest weight. So clearly, non-food inflation is contributing more. In terms of food inflation, what we are seeing over time, again from a year-on-year basis, is that since December 2023, it had a share of more than 50% of the total weight. But gradually up until, that is 6 months on, that is May 2024, its share has reduced to about 42.1%. And for us, it's not surprising given the analysis that I've just done. With food inflation being 22.6%, lower than non-food inflation, and with a weight of 42.7%, its share would definitely be less than half. That is why in May 2024, we are seeing a figure, a share of about 42%, that is about 2/5 of it. The storyline is not different when you look at month-on-month inflation. Month-on-month inflation, again, non-food inflation was 3.6% as against 2.7% for food inflation. Again, indicating a 0.9 percentage point difference between non-food and food inflation. This is where the conversation on disaggregation is very important. Benjamin, overall month-on-month inflation for May 2024 was 3.2%. We have 13 divisions for the computation of the overall inflation. And of the 13 divisions, food and non-alcoholic beverages is one of them. All the other 12 are non-food inflation. Of the 13, transport is one of them, and transport had a month-on-month inflation of 10.6%, compared to an overall inflation of 3.2%.
Wow.
So this is where our conversation with policymakers, we say that you always need to keep an eye on an item that can have multiple effects going forward.
Different ways.
So even the 10.6 now is not our concern, but going forward, how would that impact on agricultural commodities?
Because it will affect food.
It's going to affect other items that we have in the basket. So anytime transport records a month-on-month inflation of 10.6%, it should be a concern for all of us. If you relate this to the base effect, going into June, going into July, we still are going to see significant base effect. But once we get into the period where the base effect is no more kicking in and current prices are going up, we are likely to see jumps in our inflation rate. And this is the time we need to start taking precautionary measures instead of waiting until August, going into December, where we're not going to see significant base effect, bringing down our year-on-year inflation. In the context of inflation for imported items and locally produced items, we saw about a 5.1 percentage point difference between inflation for locally produced items and inflation for imported items. Locally produced items had an inflation rate of about 24.5%, and we saw 19.6% for inflation on locally produced items. The conversation around this, we always advise we have to be circumspect, in the sense that it is one of the disaggregations that you cannot completely say that a particular product is strictly locally produced and a particular product is strictly imported. There are some of them that are, you can easily do that. But if you talk about commodities, items that their inputs are imported and ends up through further processing to become locally produced, one has to be careful with that conversation. But broadly, one can say that if inflation on imported items
so those are
is going up,
goods.
Yes, it's going up. Then maybe, as people would want to attribute, maybe it's the exchange rate effect that is influencing that. But we think that we need to go beyond the broad locally produced items, imported items, and as we just did, drill down to the item level and say that yam is strictly locally produced. It is having an impact. What do we do?
I think for yam, for example, we could by and large? Because I think just about, is it 2 years ago, thereabouts, we're the world's largest exporter of yam. So maybe for yam, you would say that by and large, it's local production. I don't know the full story, but you would say that yam by and large. But how about the other items in there? And as you were talking about some items that may be partly locally produced, and look at something as basic as sanitary pads for our women. Every month, they are going to use them. Some of these taxes were waived, taken off after lots of protests from people like me. But now you have the knock-on effect of the dollar wiping away everything. So then, okay, so there's some minimal local production. There's a lot of import coming in on that. What does that mean? How does that impact? How are you even able to gauge? Well, maybe from the products and all that, but just to go back to that point you were making, it becomes pretty tricky.
And Benjamin, again, you are very spot on that. And our concern is that we treat statistics in silos, and that's the problem. As Ghana Statistical Service, we put out a trade statistics report up to the item level. So you can, and now we've started putting out what we call the unit value index in terms of changes in export and import prices. So if for a particular quarter, and as you cited for sanitary pads, you see a price hike from an import point of view, this is when, as a country, we need to know that if you leave things as they are in the coming months, the price of the commodity on the local market is going to go up. And we go ahead and tell you where we are
so you're
importing.
able to forecast. You
exactly.
can see it will happen,
exactly.
and it does.
And for us at GSS, per the professional engagement, we minimally will do forecasting. But we can guide policymakers on conversations like this and say that if you see a particular item that is having challenges from the perspective of imports, and it's a matter of either a reduction in the production or an increase in prices, you should know that 2-3 months down the line, the price of that item on the local market is going to go up. So from a policy...
So that may explain why you see a product and people say, we're going to market and getting it for about 7 cedis. All of a sudden, they are now saying it is 12 cedis. That is what happens
exactly.
sometimes. Because then they don't understand. But the person who has brought it in and gone through, whether it is wholesale or whatever, or is retailing, will tell you that, well, my hands are also tied because I got it for this. That partly explains those dynamics.
Exactly. And this is not difficult to understand. This is pretty straightforward from our point of view because the data is there telling you that 6 months ago, you had a constraint on importing this particular commodity. You don't have to wait 6 months down the line to say that why has the price gone up? When the answer, you knew about it 6 months ago. And this is why we need to integrate the different data sets to help us better understand the economy and put in the right interventions.
From the policy perspective, you are doing your bit. How responsive has been the side of, I don't like using the word government, but the policy implementers, because what they do impacts all of us. I mean, there are things that I go out now and you ask the price and I'm like, let me give you a typical example. You see the Welch or Welch drink, as we call it here, the grape. Right? Not too long ago, I used to buy this thing for 12 cedis. Now it's 40 cedis. It's not something that I would buy often. 40 cedis. In some places, it's 45 cedis. Look at the difference. 12 to 45. Within how many, a year and a half, 2 years? So I'm even lost for words. But let's also look at the disaggregation of the year-on-year inflation by division, because then some crucial things come to mind. As for the alcoholic beverages, tobacco and all of that, even the taxes and everything, that's a different story. But I'm looking at some interesting dynamics here. Health. You look at health and the weight is 0.7. The year-on-year inflation is 26.5%. Month on month, it has gone up by 1.3%. Education. The weight is 6.6. Inflation year-on-year is 25.2. Month on month, 5.5. I found that interesting. And finally, I mean, when you do all of this, you want to distress a bit. So recreation, sport, and culture. The weight's 3.5%, year-on-year 24.1%, month-on-month 1.8%. And then there are others, furnishing, transport, clothing, and footwear. What can you say about some of these specific areas? I intentionally mentioned health, education, and of course, with all the stress, you want to unwind, but how much will that cost you? What damage will it do to your pocket? What is the pattern you see there?
Again, this is why it's always important to look at the disaggregate. And I'm happy you selected health and education. And if you look at the numbers, they are behaving, the two divisions are behaving differently on a year-on-year basis and on a month-on-month basis relative to the overall figure. As you rightly said, health year-on-year is 26%, which is higher than the overall national inflation of 23.1%. Then if you look on month, health has an inflation figure 1.8, which is lower than the overall month-on-month inflation of 3.2%. The story for education is completely different. In terms of education, as you rightly said, month-on-month is 5.5, which is higher than the overall national of 3.2%. We keep saying that we need to start addressing our inflation challenges from a real sector point of view. And what this simply means is that when these figures are out there, there should be some engagement with the implementing MDAs to try and better understand whether, one, we relate with the numbers that are coming up, and two, going forward, what interventions can we put in place to ensure that we can bring the number down. I've said it severally, if we want to fight inflation only from a monetary sector point of view, leaving it solely with the Bank of Ghana, the central bank, to do that, we may suffer bringing down inflation. At best, we'll bring it down to a point, we're going to get a shock because there are external shocks that are coming in, and then we're going to go up again.
Which we are not necessarily in control of.
We don't, but you have control over your real sectors. So if now inflation from transport is 10.6, the question is, how can we engage the ministry to ensure that it doesn't further go up?
In other words, being proactive rather than reactive or reactionary.
This has been the argument. We definitely have to be proactive looking at the historical data. And the historical data is always available. And this is what I said. We have consumer pricing indices on our website ever since we started calculating inflation. And since it's always the current based on the previous, if you don't look at the previous, we'll have challenges.
What else can we do? The central bank, yes, but what else can be done? Look at where fuel prices are now. Above 14, I think 14.5, 14.9. And if you are going for the premium fuels, the V-Powers and the 195s, whether it's Goil, Total, or Shell, or any others, Zen, whatever, you are looking at 15 plus, above 15 cedis. If you look at the knock-on effect, if you want to go for a premium fuel, it's almost a cedi per liter. Multiply that. So what can we do? What really, beyond the central bank, what can be done?
Let me share with you what we're doing at the service now, and we're calling it the National Data Partnership to harness the power of data.
National Data
Partnership to harness the power of data. And all that we are trying to do is that sit with the ministries, let them tell us the data that they have, let us compare it with the data that we have, and then jointly let's see how that relates to their policies. You asked an earlier question in terms of, from a policy point of view, whether we are seeing some responsiveness in terms of the work that we are doing. I must say that we are seeing some engagement. It is differential and it is slow. And this is what we want to hasten and make it cross-cutting across all the ministries. A recent example is our engagement with the Ministry of Food and Agric. Benjamin, as we speak, the ministry can fully explain and anticipate the price increases from tomatoes' point of view, because they are collecting data and they are fully aware that we had challenges with tomato production in the first quarter of 2024. From the farm gate perspective, they have a sense of how prices have jumped up in terms of tomatoes. So once we come in from a consumer side and say that prices have also gone up, then it resonates with what they have. That is not what we want. But if this conversation is happening regularly, then at any point in time, we need to ask ourselves, at what point do we see the highest changes in the prices of tomatoes? Is it that it was solely because of production? Or is it that it was a warehouse issue? Is it that it was a transport issue? And I'm happy next week, as you are aware, we are doing this convening on food security, which is just giving us an opportunity to further engage with the ministry so that as a country, can we say that if you are self-sufficient in a particular commodity, it means you are food secure. It doesn't happen like that. So we are hoping that this conversation will happen with all the ministries where they bring their statistical targets, they bring their administrative data, we reconcile that with the population-based data that we have and see whether our interventions are yielding results. And from our point of view, we are advising that Parliament should have a second look at the criteria for signing off a policy. And our little input is that if a policy doesn't have statistical targets, we don't have to sign it off. Because there wouldn't be any basis for measuring progress.
So there's still a lot of work to be done. I have some very interesting questions for you. I'll go back to the table, but before I do that, so is that to say that this lack of control beyond the central bank, proper regulation, is what accounted, for example, we started seeing a downward trend, a spiral in inflation. It hit, was it 22 point something or 23 thereabouts? And then it jumped again to 25, above 25. And now it is coming down again. Are these some of the reasons that sometimes we see those spikes? Is that part of it?
So multiple reasons here. And the first one that I can confidently talk about is the base, which I've explained. So anytime you see the inflation figure going up, what you quickly have to check is it mainly being influenced by the base? Like I've explained, the drop of 1.9 percentage points in May 2024 was largely because of the base.
Okay.
If we see an increase in current terms, as I said, in current terms, consumer price index rose from 213 to 220. In current terms, we are seeing that. And then I tell you that transport saw a change of 10.6%. Then you ask yourself, what is the source of transport?
Right.
If it's mainly
what's causing that?
Exactly. If it's mainly a production issue, an exchange rate issue, depending on the source of what goes in there, you identify it. The good thing is that if you go into transport, you see the component of fuel, you see the component of spare parts, you see the component of trotro fares. So we further disaggregate the sources of inflation for transport into the different areas as I've explained. And then the policymaker can easily say that, no, for spare parts, it is merely an exchange rate issue. For trotro fares, no, let's engage, for instance, the GPRTU and see how we can do the negotiations to slow down the rate of increase. And whether that aligns with the increases in fuel is another conversation. And this is why I'm saying that there should be a real sector engagement when we want to bring down inflation rather than leaving it solely for the central bank.
Let's now look at, I just want us to take a look, because very recently, I believe it is Dr. Stephen Amwa that I heard, Deputy Minister for Finance, talking about the harvests that are coming, the planting or the harvest season, and the fact that food prices are going to go down soon. Of course, he didn't make it so categorical. There were caveats. But is that something we are likely to see based on, so if you look at the trajectory and where we are, both locally produced food items, let's focus on food, and imported food items, vis-a-vis whatever bumper harvest we may have, is that a likelihood?
Benjamin, I made a point earlier on, and I'm going to state it again categorically. If you are self-sufficient in a particular crop, it doesn't mean that it's accessible to people in Ghana. And I can give you very basic reasons. If you are self-sufficient from a production side and they are mainly going into export, what we have on the local market would have to be competed for, and then prices are going to go up. So,
do you know what is coming to mind?
No.
Chocolate.
Yeah.
We produce, and I know there's been a dip in production of cocoa and all of that, but how many Ghanaians consume, how many Ghanaians can afford chocolate? How many consume chocolate?
So we need to revisit that conversation and always go through the value chain. Another typical example is that production might go up, but if it doesn't go up to commensurate population increases, you cannot simply say that we expect that prices are going to come down. If production goes up and transportation, warehousing, and all that are not in place, you cannot simply say that that will lead to a reduction in prices. Historically, there has been that trend, but let us go to the numbers and say that the extent of increases in production is the same as we see when it comes to reduction in prices. And definitely the answer will be no. And that is what is going to take us back to say that, are we exporting when we have high production? Are we seeing a lot of price increases across the different value chains for which will not lead to price reduction at the consumer point, then we can get a better appreciation of this conversation. All should be based on the numbers rather than what generally we think it is. And it should be very disaggregated at the item level because items will behave differently. Yeah. If the item is not cash crop, is not for the population consumption, not a food crop, they will behave differently.
In other words, the micro level disaggregation is where the devil is. That is where you get to see the true picture, not the general, disaggregation. As you go further down, you get to see better how the products are behaving and what the causative factors could be.
I mean, a conversation that going forward I want us to have is what I'm terming domestication of official statistics in Ghana. And this is exactly what you've talked about, domestication of official statistics in Ghana. And that is why this week we've launched the multidimensional poverty index at the district level, and even at the district level, we want to go to the locality level. So the domestication would happen at 2 levels, 1 at the sectorial level and 2 at the MMDA level, that is the subnational level. And going forward, we're going to ask ourselves, as a country, what statistics do we need? One of the questions that I keep asking myself is, why haven't we given poverty, food insecurity, the same prominence that we are giving to inflation and GDP?
We've already been told that on the back of COVID, almost 1 million people have fallen into poverty. How are we dealing with that? That's what you're saying.
And I'm saying that it is not the responsibility of the National Statistical System to define the statistics that has to be produced. It's the policymaker that says that I have these interventions in my policy document. Produce these statistics to fit the interventions that I have in the policy document. That is why we're saying that every policy document should have statistical targets. And it's one of the commendations that I have for the Planting for Food and Jobs too. It has statistical targets in there, and the ministry wants to take the step forward to say that GSS, can we validate these baseline figures? And that is what we should do across all the ministries. It's not just having the statistical targets, but how realistic are those statistical targets, and going forward, how realistic are the projections, and who is going to monitor and evaluate those projections? Yeah. These conversations are not happening.
Let's do the last bit on the disaggregation. Another interesting bit, disaggregation of year-on-year, month-on-month food inflation by subclass. I'm bringing this up because when we were having those conversations about import. You remember the bill that was being proposed for Parliament, and some of the yemwadie, the what do you call it? Innards, the live animals, meat and other parts of slaughtered animals, and then fish and other seafood. When I look at the dynamics here, I see an interesting picture in terms of, well, the weighting is what it is, but the year-on-year inflation, fish and other seafood, I'm looking at what, 21.6%? And then the live animals and others, and again, our poultry industry impacted recently. There was an initiative to provide live chicks and all of that. That is 23.8%, just on these two. What is happening there? What is happening?
So again, I'm happy you touched on the weights and you've touched on the price changes. Keep in mind that food inflation for May 2024 was 22.6. You see in there that vegetables has a weight, tubers and plantains, has a weight of 9.5. And it saw the highest price change across the subclasses and the food. Of the 22.6 that we recorded for overall food inflation, vegetables, plantains, and tubers, given its weight and the price change, contributed 3.6 percentage points to the overall 22.6. And we have 15 subclasses under food. So if one of them is contributing 3.6 of the overall 22.6, it tells you the importance of that. The second one is what you talked about, fish and other meat. Saw a price change of 23.1%. Has a weight of about 7.6. With this, its contribution was about 2.0 percentage points to the overall. So anytime you take food, I keep saying, of the 15 subclasses, there are 5 of them that have weights more than 5. And that is where we should concentrate on. And I earlier on told you that ready-made food is one of them. So you see that ready-made food is one of the 5 subclasses under food with significant weight more than 5 and also saw significant price change. So equally contributed significantly to the overall food inflation of 22.6. So please, let's try and continuously move away from the headlines and talk about these stories, because you can easily influence it at the item level rather than the aggregated level.
It's much more than just saying, oh, inflation has fallen by 1.something%. We are getting better. The devil is in the detail. When you go down there, then you see that is why, and you see, that's how you get the understanding of, but they say inflation is going down, but it appears the cost of. I hope you appreciate now, and that is why we are always so grateful that you come through. But I want us now to look at the regional breakdown. You know, oftentimes we assume that, oh, things are so expensive in Accra and all of that, but in other places as well. When I was speaking about the tomato conversation yesterday, I was shocked. Some people from areas where you would expect that, oh, tomato prices would be low, we're also saying we are buying it for 5 cedis here as well, which was shocking for me. So which regions are facing the biggest crunch? Which regions are seeing the highest inflation? Which regions are seeing the biggest jumps in inflation? And also, which ones are seeing quite a decline in inflation? Just
So Benjamin, just as we've done from the commodity perspective, we do the same from the regional perspective. And what that means is that we have the weights of each of the 16 administrative regions and how they impact on the overall national rate of inflation. Greater Accra region alone contributes 28.5% to the overall rate of inflation. So that is why anytime we see Greater Accra's rate of inflation going up, we caution that we need to tame it, because it's about a third of the overall rate of inflation, followed by Ashanti region and so on and so forth. This is understandable because these two regions are about 5.6 million and 5.5 million from our 2021 population housing census. So these two regions are contributing about a third to our overall population. And we are seeing same from an inflation point of view, because it's population driven and people that we are talking about. Now, Greater Accra region gradually is moving up. About 6-7 months, we saw Greater Accra region recording very low rates of inflation. If I recall very well,
it's ticking up again.
It's ticking up again, Greater Accra region. Now, the region that has the lowest rate of inflation is Oti region, with a rate of inflation of about 10.3%, and Upper East region having the highest rate of inflation of 35.6%. When we do the release, we highlight on the highest and the lowest and say it's about 3 times difference. But when we are engaging policymakers, it's the conversation that I've just had with you. Let's look at the trend for Greater Accra and with its weight, begin to ask ourselves whether we can we can start putting in some measures to tame Greater Accra's region's rate of inflation. Taming Upper East region rate of inflation is good for the people in Upper East. We need to do that, but let's do that at the regional level. But if you want to tame overall inflation, you don't go and say that Upper East has the highest rate of inflation of 35.6%, so at a national level, let me go and do that. It's going to impact minimally.
So 2 quick things there. I am surprised, first of all, that the Upper East has the highest rate of inflation, 1. And then 2, if you tame inflation in Greater Accra, or if you are unable to tame it, how does it impact the rest of the country? Is it because of the imports that come in and how some of them, you know, there's a different, I don't know how to put it, but there are some things that will come from the rural areas to the urban areas and others that will come from the urban areas to the rural areas. So by the time they leave here and get there, cost has increased. What are the dynamics?
So from the perspective of Upper East region, from the release that we did with the 35.6 for Upper East region, alcoholic beverages recorded the highest price change, and it has a significant weight of 0.8 within the divisions for the Upper East region, and saw a price change in excess of 60% for May 2024. So that was the main driver for Upper East region recording that. When we see a region with the highest interest inflation rate, we engage the regional statisticians to engage the regional coordinating council to begin to ask ourselves, what can we do to tame it down? One of the regions that heeded this approach was the Western North region. You recall a few months ago, Western North region was recording the highest rate of inflation. We engaged and they took this to the traditional level, and now Western North region is one of the regions with the lowest rate of inflation. Indeed, it is the region that has seen the significant drop between May 2023 and May 2024.
Even when it comes to food inflation,
yes,
they are second from the bottom, which is a good thing because their inflation is the second lowest compared to OT.
But 9 months ago, it wasn't the story. So and again, I come back to domesticating official statistics at the lowest level of our geography. Your second question is very important in terms of Greater Accra region and its impact on the other regions. Anybody who says that it is direct, it is indirect, will not help the conversation going forward. It should be item-based. Which item is coming into Greater Accra and from where and how is that impacting? Which item is going out of Greater Accra? And that is why we distinguish between locally produced items and imported items. If it's locally produced items and it's food, then if it's coming from somewhere, you need to think about how that is impacting from a transportation point of view on Greater Accra. If you are thinking about imported item, the item gets to Tema. That is the first port of call. And then as it goes out of Greater Accra, again, how does the price change? So this conversation can only be done at the item level rather than generalizing in terms of how Greater Accra distributional issues impact the other regions.
Having said that, the final point I will make here, so Greater Accra and Ashanti. I don't know what weighting you give to Ashanti, whether it's just below the Greater Accra region. What is the impact on the other belt or on the rest of the country, the Ashanti region? And generally, beyond what you said, how can we tame inflationary pressures, whether regionally and even nationally? What then would be the approach? If you had been given the free hand, do it, what would you do beyond the central bank?
So, if I recall correctly, the Greater Accra, as I said, is about 28.5%. Ashanti region, I know it's about 10-11%. So I know the two regions in terms of weight.
What's Greater Accra again?
28.5.
28.5.
Yes.
And Ashanti
Ashanti is about 11, thereabout. I need to confirm that. But the two regions, as I said, contributes about 2/5 that I can say to overall inflation. So the other 14 regions would have to compete with the 3/5 that is left. So that tells you the impact of these two regions when it comes to computation of...
Because this is almost 40%.
Yeah, so 2/5.
When you add those, 28.5, yes. 11, that's 39 point something.
Correct.
So.
Correct. So that is the weight of Greater Accra and Ashanti region. My reflection on how to deal with this, sorry if I have to repeat this, we need to own the statistics at the lower level of geography. Regional ministers should be more interested in the rate of inflation and let us not treat inflation as a national level engagement. I did say earlier on that we have the other 14 regions that would have to share the 60%. They wouldn't impact so much on the national level, but the people that you have in your region might be experiencing significant price changes. So if we have a system where regional ministers go to regional coordinating council meetings and say that our agenda item is to drill down the inflation figure and see the price changes that our people are experiencing, that is the only way we can address the rate of inflation.
In other words, regionally, in tackling the national problem, we must go down to the regional problem. And
this is the domestication I'm talking about. Treat it right regionally and treat it sectorally. So when it comes to transport, deal with it sectorally. Don't deal with it at that broad level. Let it not be the headache of only Bank of Ghana and the Ministry of Finance. But the real sectors, how are they dealing with price changes from their point of view? Then if you go to the sub-national level, get the regional coordinating councils, the district coordinating councils to be interested in that. We don't have representation at the district level, as I said earlier, in terms of our markets. But we have representation at the regional level. That doesn't mean that the regions should not be interested in the district should not be interested in the price changes.
But how can they get involved? It must be structures, right? How can they be roped in?
No, but as I indicated earlier on, if you take a huge market in a particular region and you know the number of districts that feed on the market, you should be interested in there. And you can come to us and say that, can you give us the average prices? I say inflation is an outcome statistic. But the prices are what we use in calculating it. And we are able to give average prices of the commodities at a certain level of geography, such as the regional averages. And this enables us to do the food price variability report that we've been putting out so that we get a sense of how average prices vary across the different regions. And this is not about inflation, which is the output. It's about the input, which is prices, that goes into the computation of inflation as an output.
Let's now look at utilities come to mind. I don't know how you factor those, because I even saw water at a point there, and I know it's consumables. I don't know what effect we're feeling. Recently, there was another increment. If you have any thoughts on that to share, how you're feeling the impact of this, you can do that. But the main question I wanted to ask you then, what would be your forecast? Let's say I know, I'm putting you in we're in June. What would be your forecast going into the next cycle? Dr. Stephen Amoah has said what he said. The exchange rate is what it is. What would be your forecast weighing all these dynamics?
This will be one of the questions that I wouldn't be able to give you an answer, but I would just go back to the parameters that I talked about earlier on. What I can confidently say is about last year's figures. As I said, 8.1 for last year was the highest. Going into May, June next year, we have about 5.0, and going into June, July, we have about 6. These are significant base effects that are going to tell on the current period for June and July going forward.
Right.
But in August, we don't have any base effect. Indeed, we had a reduction of 0.4 indices between July and August 2024. And this data is available publicly, so we all know we have control over it. Now, if we're going to see energy price increases in the next couple of months,
right,
that effect might be dampened by the base, because the base is huge. But if we're going to see continuous increases and exchange rates in the next 3-4 months, we wouldn't benefit from any base effect in the month of August. As I said, indeed, the indices show a decline of 0.4. So what we're going to see in June, July, in terms of current price increases, what I can tell you is that those price increases on a year-on-year basis are likely to be dampened by the base effect, given what happened last year. But then whatever happens in August in terms of current price increases, there wouldn't be any base that would cushion us going forward. So we wouldn't be able to say that we expect a reduction or an increase, but given how all these will play out, keeping in mind the base is what we can use as guidance going forward.
Prof, we're very grateful for your time this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Unless there's anything else you want to add, maybe in some 20 seconds?
Just quickly to say that next week, Tuesday, we are doing a release of the gross domestic product for the first quarter of 2024. Wednesday, Thursday, we are doing a maiden release of the multidimensional poverty index and a national dialogue on the computation of multidimensional poverty and food insecurity. The week after, that is 26th June, we're going to release the National Human Development Report, an exercise that we've done in collaboration with the United Nations Development Program. We're mentioning all this as our next releases so that we prepare ourselves, engage with it better, and see how that would impact policy. Thank you.
Prof. Yadase Ayiko.
Thank you.
And that is Professor Samuel Kobina Enim, head of the Ghana Statistical Service. You can call him our chief statistician. Doing us the honors and breaking it down for us. I'm always interested in this. I know you are too, so that we all know how to handle ourselves and manage. Because Ghana, dear, 31+ million managers. We are all here. But on Citizens Microphone today, we find out how the cost of living is impacting the daily lives of some students and what their coping strategies have been. Today, we take you to what we used to call the Ghana Institute of Journalism, the University of Media, Arts and Communication. Sweetie Abochi, my colleague, is standing by and she's going to have an interaction with some of these students.
We are here this morning at UNIMAC, specifically the Ghana Institute of Journalism, to understand how students are faring in this economy. Now, this year, particularly this month, we've experienced enormous hike in food prices, inflation has gone up, cost of transportation has gone up, and students are also feeling the pinch. So we are here with these amazing students to tell us how their experience has been when it comes to how much they used to spend on food, transportation, and other amenities, and what they're spending now, and what they think accounts for the difference, and what they want to be done about it. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Usually they'll say ladies first, but I want to change that and start with Albert first because he's the only gentleman among us. So like we're saying before we came on air, we really want to understand from your perspective, because this program is Citizens Microphone. How are you faring in this economy? And you can chip in how life was, how much you used to spend, and how much you're spending now.
Well, thank you very much. I think life basically has become quite unbearable. Yeah. Formerly, with a little amount of money, you could live for some time, but no, it's no longer so these days. No, you need to do a lot of budgeting, calculations to be able to live on the little that you have, and it's making things very, very unbearable for us these days.
Let's make it real. For example, in a month, how much were you spending, let's say later part of last year, in December last year? How much could you have spent on food, transportation, and the other things that you need to buy in a month?
Well, it depends. Okay. Well, sometimes the things that you need in a month could vary. Right. So, but on the average? Well, say if you are going to the market, well, taking some other people's perspective into consideration, you could take like 300 to the market, buy a lot of stuff. But these days, you just buy very few stuff and then the money is gone. Yeah.
So from 300 now, let's say, what's the least you can buy the same quantity of things with?
Maybe twice that amount.
Yeah, so that's like 600 Ghana cedis. Well, there you have it. So let me speak to you now on the same issue. How are you doing as a student in this economy? And talk to me about the cost of transportation, cost of food, cost of clothing, and all the other things that goes into your daily or monthly expenditure.
Okay, thank you. So as a student, if you don't live in a hostel around, you'd have to come from home. And if your home is very far, transportation is costly. So let's say, for example, if you are coming from Dodoa to the school, it can be over 10 cedis for transport. And when it comes to Bolt is really expensive, especially when you're coming from somewhere that is very close, but then you'll give you a very high price. And when it comes to food, I remember we used to buy food for 10 cedis and it would be a lot. But now food starts from 10 cedis and above. It means you have to spend more on food to survive.
Does it satisfy you when you buy 10 cedis? What's the quantity of food that you get for 10 cedis now? Does it satisfy you?
Well, it depends on the kind of person that eats. If you are a person who really likes food, it won't satisfy you. But if you're someone who doesn't like food as much, it would. But it's a lot, and the proteins too are very much expensive. Yes.
Let me just chip in that, recent statistics show that most households spend over 40% of their income on food. Food alone. If you're spending over 40% on food, what is left to go into savings, clothing, transportation? Talk to me.
For me, I'll say that at first, I used to spend like 100 Ghana cedis on everything, like transport, food, and all the sweets that I'll buy on campus when I come.
But is that in a week, a day, or a month?
A day, just a day. From me coming from my house to the school, I spend like 100 cedis. But for now, I spend like 200 cedis and above, and that's so much. Like, it is too much.
What are your parents saying about all of this? Are they able to give you the 200 and above?
Yeah, for them, they are able to do that because they are there to provide for us. But I know that definitely they'll be complaining in their heads and then they'll be struggling with it. But because we are their lovely children, they have to do it for us. So me right now, for you to give me 100 Ghana cedis 10, I want $100 5. It's okay for me.
Why is that? I want to stay on this for a bit. Is it because you understand that the value of the cedi is depreciating? What are you trying
Because $100 is like 1,000 plus. So just imagine getting 2 of it. It's not even easy. So it is cool. So right now our value of money is down. It's really, really down. 100 cedis is nothing. If you remove 100 cedis right now from your money, that's all. The money will vanish. You wouldn't even see it.
The money will vanish. You agree?
Yes, I agree with her. Very, very cheap because, like my friend said earlier, sometimes you go and buy food. I'll just sit there and look at the food. I'll be like, no, this was not the then economy. What is going on? I have to go and buy more and add to the food. And by the time you check your pocket, the money is finished. You call that they want money. You know the economy is hard. You know the economy is this.
So your parents will complain.
Yeah, they complain. The economy is so please manage for us. It's not easy for them. Sometimes they'll give us 100 cedis to go and buy cook. We'll buy fufu, we'll do the soup. Even there will be leftover for the next day. But now 100 cedis, you can't even do anything. Just light soup. You spend like 200 just to do light soup. Tomatoes, one is 5 cedis. Egg. Hey, like egg.
Cocaine. Tomatoes is now cocaine in the system. Like you can't even afford it. 1 tomatoes, 5 Ghana cedis. How do you expect
tomato cocaine? That's a new one.
Yes, it's too much. Egg. I was going to buy egg. The woman was like, egg is 3 cedis, 50 pesos. Ghana. Hey, like what's going on?
What's going on? The question I'm throwing to you.
Right now, the economy is too hot because I remember I was given 200 cedis last week, and now all we do now is that because we can't afford food, all we buy nowadays is a hungry man indomie, 10 cedis. That's what we depend on as students right now. That's the food that we started eating since last 2 weeks, and it's so.
All you eat is indomie.
Yes.
Kibo Gary Soakings.
Wow, because you cannot afford to buy wache and the rest. Say that again.
Our parents are really suffering because money is very hard to come by, especially in this economy. So when they give us an amount of money, it can finish in a day, and when we ask for it again, they will start to complain because the value of the cedi is very low compared to other currency.
Most of you are students of journalism and PR and, some of the communication-related courses. I want to understand, do you understand what's accounting for this hike in food prices? And do you understand what's causing all this? Anyone wants to give it a try? You spoke about depreciation of cedi. I just want to understand if for us or for your parents, adults, sometimes we try to understand the issues, and we know that inflation means that pegged against the dollar, our money is like not performing well at all. And do you understand how that ricochets into transportation and food and all that? I just want your understanding of what you think is happening.
Okay, I feel like we as a country right now, we depend on the foreigners. So we mostly buy goods outside and then they import it in the country. And then because their money is higher than ours, it makes ours more expensive. Yeah, so that's the reason why things are really expensive in the country, because like $100 is like 1,000 Ghana plus. So just imagine we just imported something for $100, just 110, and then for us like 100 Ghana cedis is very low. It can't even buy anything in one day. Yeah.
I would also say mismanagement of our resources. The government. I'm not necessarily saying MPP or NDC, no. But I'm saying whoever is in charge, please manage our resources well for us. Because we are suffering. It's too much. The resources are not utilized well. Sister,
how do you mean?
Sometimes they'll be like, we have this money there, right? We just heard that they said every individual is owing some huge sum of money. Me, I haven't even seen that money before. I don't even know where it's coming from, because my daddy has never shown me that money before. So I was surprised when they said I was owing that money. I don't know if I didn't do anything. They will go and borrow money. Our roads are not good. But they say today they went to IMF for money, today they went to this one for money, and they are using it, and we are the ones supposed to pay for it. I think that's also the reason why our goods are coming high.
So now that you understand, I'll ask you what you think we can do about it, but let me take your thoughts now.
Okay, it can be based on a scale of preference.
because as an individual, you know what you want. So sometimes, for instance, I'll say I want this, but because my scale of preference is too high, like I will do anything as much as possible to get that thing.
What do you mean by scale of preference? Are you talking about clothes? Are you talking about? Yes. So make it very practical for me.
Okay, let's take our sister for instance. Let's say when she braids her head, it's like almost 100 cedis or 200 cedis. But for now, when you want to braid your hair, like even like even
how much does it cost to braid your hair now?
6.1. Me, I usually go to Braids and Beyond. At first, it was low, like 400 and something. But recently, it's like 6 point something, and some are even 1,000 Ghana cedis just
to braid your hair.
Just to braid your hair. It's 70 Ghana cedis.
Sometimes, when it comes to like women and maintaining their hair and everything, it's very costly. For example, if she went to braid her hair at Braids and Beyond is a very high, very high class. So they would charge a lot of money. If only for washing can be 60 cedis. And before the braids come and then the workmanship will come. So it's very, very expensive.
So that's what she's saying about scale of preference. So there are other places that you could go and get them relatively cheaper. Is that what you're saying? So complete your trail of thoughts and I'll come back and take your opinion on what you think should be done about it.
Okay, so I think being basically on this, let's also try as individuals to like draw our own budget to reduce some scale of preference in our standard of living, because we are also part of Ghana as an individual, because we are made up of Ghana. Let's say we the citizens, we make Ghana.
Okay, we make Ghana. Now, riding on this scale of preference, do you think it's because of our taste for foreign goods? Someone was just telling me about importation and how we depend heavily on that. So if we don't import, what do we do? And then in answering that question, I want to take your view, starting from Albert, on how you think that we can turn this around.
Well, first of all, I'd like to speak about the first question that you had asked. What has led to the prices of food items and other? I think the number one thing is economic mismanagement. Yeah, we can't run away from that. Economic mismanagement, in a sense that our leaders are not managing the resources of the country very well. Yeah, there's a lot of mismanagement, and there's no running away from that. And then coupled with that is the prices of goods and services. You know, like the prices of fuel. Once the price of fuel, for example, goes up, you know, it cuts across everything. Right. And also high taxes on goods and services. Yeah. For example, particularly on imports, and I think to a very large extent it's killing the Ghanaian economy. Yeah.
Thank you so much for engaging me. And you are very intelligent people. You have a fair understanding of what's happening. But Benjamin Akakpo is in the studio, and I'm handing over back to you. These are some of the things that students are saying here at Unimark on Citizens Microphone. They're saying that the cost of living is really high. And what? It costs over 600 cedis to braid their hair. Tomatoes is 5 cedis. We've established that on the show a couple of times. But yeah, this is what we have here at the Ghana Institute of Journalism and at Unimark. Over to you, Benjamin.
Thank you very much, Sweetie Abochi. She's been on the ground doing the do. You know, even in the studio here with my guests for the next conversation, 600 Ghana. At least, thank God, it doesn't cost me that to get my hair cropped, which I'm going to do today because Charlie and he would have left our hair. But let's come back into the studio. It's all about the latest annual leadership lecture. All roads will soon lead to the University for Professional Studies, Accra. Who is going to deliver this year's lecture? What is on the chopping board? What is the theme? Well, joining me in the studio, we have Professor Emmanuel Asamoah. He is Dean, Faculty of IT and Communication Studies at the University for Professional Studies, Accra. And then Ivy Hayward-Mills, Director, Center for International Education and Collaboration. I was just teasing her a short while ago about her dapper combination. In case you get to see her shoe, you'll understand what I mean. But Ivy, thanks for joining the conversation.
Thank you for having us.
Well, every year you do this, and it's always amazing. You've had Otumfuo Osei,
yeah,
the Asante Hene. You've had Peter Cardinal, Apia Texan, among others. And this year we're at the doorstep of another annual leadership lecture. Let me start with you, Prof. Yeah. Why these lectures? You know, sometimes Ghanaians will ask, what do you mean, Charlie? Why these lectures?
Right, so thank you very much. It's University of Professional Studies. UPSA...
what did I say?
For Professional Studies.
Ah, okay, I took...
We are very particular with our
University of Professional Studies, okay. I hear you.
So UPSA, as an academic institution, as part of our mandate, we are supposed to create such platforms to stimulate international intellectual discussions and thought leadership. And so over the years, this is the 6th in the series. We've been organizing these leadership series, and the intention is to shape public discourse on matters that are of pertinent, significance to national development. And in the past, we've had very distinguished speakers gracing the platform. We've had the first edition, Dr. Ibn Chambers coming through. We've had former President Kufuor, like you said, Otumfuo Osei II. We've also had Cardinal Peter Texan coming through. And last year we had the Venerable Kwame Pienim speaking passionately about the nation.
How do you get all these people? I mean, top-notch.
Well, I believe it is a partnership because they have seen the fact that we have shown leadership through the development of the university. Everybody can attest to the fact that what has happened at UPSA over the years is transformational. That is an example of good leadership. And so we believe that such examples are what they look out for to agree to grace our platforms whenever we call upon them. So this year is no different, and we are also going to have this particular leadership series under the topic, fulfilling the promise, the challenge of leadership, moving from rhetoric to delivery. It's a very important topic in time.
It's a big issue. From the talk to, and this is an election year.
Yes, that's
and the talk is out there.
It's out there.
But how will the talk result in any real action for us?
Absolutely.
That's where the devil is.
Absolutely, yes. And that is why we have organized this leadership series. We believe that it's going to be very intellectually stimulating, and for that reason, you can't miss it. You just have to be there.
We will not miss it. Yeah. We'll be there with you as always. But let me come to Ivy. I don't know what the mandate is in over time in terms of organizing these lectures. He's touched on it a bit. But would you say the objective of organizing these lectures, whether in the national context or the global impact context, have been fulfilled over time? 5 gone. We're at the doorstep of the 6th.
I think so. UPS's mandate, like Prof said, includes creating a point of convergence for conversations around leadership, conversations around development, conversations around anything that positively impacts society. And the social impact of the things that we have talked about in the past can be felt. If you're asking for measurable impact.
What do you see to be the impact of these lectures?
It's the fulfillment of our mandate. That's one of the key things. And the fact that we have stirred up conversations around matters that are pertinent to society. We are thought leaders in several areas, and I think that the impacts can be felt all around. UPSA itself is an example, a shining and glowing example of positive leadership and the impact that it creates. So I do think that the lectures have been impactful.
I see you want to add something to that.
Certainly. We have the thinking of raising a certain level of consciousness on issues that borders on national development. And so when you look at the topics that we have presented as part of the leadership series over the years, they are pertinent issues.
Right.
And by the time we leave that particular lecture, you realize that there is a shift in the thinking, because these people don't only come with the things that we know, but they provide alternative solutions, provide constructive criticisms. So sometimes when you are in the position of leadership, you may not be conscious of some of the wrongs, but such platforms over the years have created a paradigm shift from what we are used to things that are different, that will propel us to the next level of development. This is what we have represented over the years. And so yes, the impact has really been achieved, and we look forward to making more impact going into the future.
Obviously, you can only get better. Let me come back to you, Ivy. Who is your guest speaker, and why did you choose this person?
This year, we have the privilege of hosting the Right Honourable the Lord Paul Boateng. He's a member of the House of Lords, and he will be joining us this year. If you know anything about Lord Boateng, you'd know that he's of Ghanaian descent. But he has made so much impact in both the political and corporate governance space, both in the UK and across the globe. And so he's going to be bringing a lot of insights from lessons learned across his journey, a lot of the knowledge he has acquired. He's a lawyer by profession. He's worked a lot in social activism. And he has a lot to offer. I don't want to spill too much of the beans, but I'd say that...
You don't want to steal his thunder.
No, I don't. He's a remarkable individual, and you have to be at the auditorium to hear him on Tuesday.
When I saw the name, it just reminded me of some stuff I had read about him in the past. And thankfully, he's coming back home to give us a piece of what he has got out there and share his impact. But I'll put this question to both of you. Yeah. What should we expect? Even before we talk about how participation is going to be like, whether it's hybrid and all of that, what should we expect on D-Day?
Well, so as such platforms represent intellectual discussion, we should have a platform where people will come and listen to his experience over the years. He's had an illustrious career in public service, in private life, and I believe that he has a lot of experience to share with us regarding the topic that we have put forward for discussion. So anybody who comes for the program must really have an open mind, ready to engage. And there will be an opportunity for people to ask questions as well from Lord Boateng, who will provide appropriate responses. So it's not just going to be a monologue, but it's going to be, if you like, a discussion. Okay. So you have opportunity to clarify issues when you have doubt, yes.
All right, so it's not going to be one-sided.
Not at all. We can assure you that it's going to be a very dynamic and engaging lecture.
Who can attend? Where is it happening specifically within the UPSA? And what is the date? Give us some of those.
The date is the 18th of June. That's next Tuesday. Who can attend? Anyone can attend. Anyone who is passionate about national development, anyone who is passionate about leadership, anyone who has an interest in learning and broadening their horizons can attend. In the past, we've welcomed academics, we've welcomed people from industry, we've welcomed students, we've welcomed people from all walks of life attending. So anyone at all can attend. It's going to be held at the magnificent Kofi Ohene Konedo Auditorium at UPSA, and it's a 3,500 seating capacity. So you're more than welcome. Just arrive on time. It's going to be at 10 a.m. And at UPSA, when we say 10, we mean 10 a.m. start. We're very punctual. So aim at being seated by 9:30 so that you don't miss out on any aspect of the lecture.
All right. Well, great stuff. Thank you very much for having joined the conversation. It's all about this annual lecture at the University of Professional Studies.
Yes.
I didn't want to
Indeed, yes.
stoke your wrath. Professor Emmanuel Asamoah is Dean, Faculty of IT and Communication Studies. He joined the conversation. Thank you, Prof. Ivy Heyward-Mills is Director, Center for International Education and Collaboration. She also joined. Ivy, thank you for joining. Thank you for looking dapper. Well, so as we wind down on the conversation today, we would like to celebrate a few people, and then we can say goodbye to you on the show and head into Joy News Desk. First, a blessed birthday to my friend, Mr. Abu Zachariah, a commander of the Ghana Armed Forces. May God continue to bless you abundantly. It's from Rosalind Nantoma. She sends this one. Mr. Abu Zachariah, commander of the Ghana Armed Forces. Happy birthday to you. This one also comes through from Tinkong. Okay, so let me just read it. Please wish my 2 girls happy birthday for me. They are twins from Tinkong Asana and Fuseina from Asante Ventures Pig Farm. So, Mr. Asante, we are celebrating Asana and Fuseina. Happy birthday to you as well. And the last one, my own producer extraordinaire, who is now hopping around doing different things. Ekosam, Derek Ekosam, today is your birthday. Happy birthday to you. And you know the love is deep. Continue being that wonderful person you are. We deeply appreciate you. Derek Ekosam, today is your birthday. I saw him running around here somewhere in white. I'm going to chase him for that white outfit at some point. And that's our producer. We don't do this on the show. We don't put pictures. But this one is a special one. Derek, happy birthday to you. And that's how we cap off the show this morning. But let me also salute Ciru Africa for giving me this outfit. Very briefly, if you see this outfit I am donning this morning, it is courtesy of Ciru Africa. Mudasiru is doing a fantastic job, and I just want to shout him out. You can reach them online. That is www.ciruafrica.com, SIRUafrica.com, or call them on 0557 029 138. And that's the note on which we cap off the show this morning. Congratulations to everybody making this happen. Kingsley Otu, Yao Forsen, Dennis, everybody. Nicholas Yamwa, God bless you. It's a wrap on the AM show. When we return, it will be time for Joy News Desk. Bye-bye.